All right. Good morning. Welcome to the budget workshop of the Okaloosa County Board of County Commissioners, Tuesday, July 9th at 8:30 a.m. We will begin with an invocation by Senior Pastor Ronnie Bearden of First Methodist Church here in Crestview, and then the Pledge of Allegiance led by Chief Lapie from the Sheriff's Office. Please stand.
Heavenly Father, we gather before you on this day and pray for our county commission. Our county is growing, and that's a wonderful thing, but it presents a lot of challenges and opportunities. And I pray for these people as they exercise their duties, give them wisdom and discerning hearts in making good decisions and oftentimes tough decisions. May your grace and peace touch our county. For we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Chief. We'll begin this morning, the next item of a budget overview. Mr. Hofstad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. As this commission knows, we spend considerable time each year preparing a spending plan for this board based on the board's guidance and the feedback you give to us as staff and developing our expenditure plan for the coming year. This process for us starts typically in the month of February with a request for personnel increase, followed by requests for capital projects, equipment, major equipment and vehicles, and then the departments typically build their budgets in the month of April, and that's followed by a series of meetings with my office and our administrative team in the month of May. That culminates in pulling a budget together in the month of June, and we present to you a balanced budget in July. From that process, we solicit the board's feedback on any things you want to see inclusive into the budget that we've not added, and those things that you would love for us to see pulled from the budget. At the end of that process in July, we take the month of August and prepare a final balanced budget that we present to you in September in a series of public hearings, which we culminates in the final adoption of our spending plan for the next fiscal year. So this is starting that process with the board, with our workshops. We have a series of 2 workshops, the workshop today followed by 1 in 2 weeks in Shalimar, and from that we certainly welcome and solicit this board's feedback on this expenditure plan for next year. With that, I have a series of slides that I'd like to walk you through very quickly, and we have a number of presentations today. I believe the sheriff has a presentation, followed by the courts, and a number of our departments have presentations to the board as well. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will advance through these slides and give you a few highlights. And as we know, this is a workshop. Please, along the way, if you have questions, just stop me, stop staff, and we'll do our best to answer those questions as we move forward. This budget contemplates about a 7.5% increase in property valuations for next year. That's slightly reduced over what we've seen the previous 2 or 3 years when we were experiencing double-digit growth in property values. Still, 7.5% is indicative of a strong economy here in Okaloosa County. That equates to about a $2 billion additional increase in property values here in Okaloosa County. I've got a slide later that I'll show you that 10-year trend. Millage rate projected to hold flat at 3.8308 mills. I believe this is the 8th year we've held flat at 3.83 mills. As this board knows, we have one of the lowest property millages in the state of Florida. Very proud of that. Our staff does an excellent job at keeping our expenditures as low as possible while still getting the mission done and preserving that low tax burden for our residents here in Okaloosa County. General fund reserves, as the board also knows, we have placed considerable emphasis over the last 10 years in growing general fund reserve. When I stepped into this role 10 years ago, that general fund reserve was less than $5 million. Now we have a robust general fund reserve. Still, when you look at it impacts this county and potential impacts, you want to have that strong and healthy reserve so you can weather the storm and pull through these crisis moments that happen to us here in Florida. But $25 million, we'll have our audited financial numbers later this year. That sets the target for that general fund cap that we like to keep, which is 2 months of operating expenditures. I expect that number, and our finance team is here, I expect that number to be somewhere in excess of 26 million once we go through that process later this year. I wanted to hit on this next bullet because I think it's critically important. When I stepped into this role in 2014, our bond rating was an AA minus. We just went through a series of bond issuance, bond rating calls with Fitch, one of the bond issuers, and we have, from that process, have gotten our next upgrade. This is our 4th upgrade in 10 years. We are now at a AAA bond rating here in Okaloosa County, which I think is indicative of our strong financial position, our sound management practices and budgeting practices, building that general fund reserve, getting a lot of needed capital projects done, and still having significant debt ceiling here in Okaloosa County. As we know, we are facing some capital expenditure here in the coming years with the jail expansion and what we're trying to do with Public Works and the relocation of the Public Works compound. So there's going to be additional expenditure we're looking at in the coming years. But we are in a strong financial position here in Okaloosa County, much stronger than we were 10 years ago. And that is a testament to this board and your leadership in guiding us through that process. This is, Kelly, I think the second or third year that we have third year that we're not looking at a medical insurance increase. As you know, we changed our brokerage firm here a few years ago. And I think we're seeing the dividends of that and their strong advocacy for Okaloosa County with our insurance provider. No medical insurance increase is huge because that cost is typically passed on to both the board and the general fund as well as our employees. So no medical insurance increase, a modest increase in dental insurance, and Kelly will touch on that. This total budget all in represents about $646 million. That's an increase of a little over 19 million from last year. We were at 626 million last year, roughly a 3.1% increase in the overall budget. So modest growth compared to the previous couple of years. But you recall, as we came through COVID in 20, there was a lot of federal dollars flowing, a lot of CARES dollars that flowed into counties throughout the country, and that helped grow those budgets. I'm not seeing those federal dollars flow in, but still that's good solid growth here for Okaloosa County in our budget. Our number of full-time equivalent employees, we're now at about 1,040 something employees. We have had a request for 42 additional positions. That initial request that came in was probably somewhere north of 60 or 70 positions, but going through the process I go through with the department directors, we remove some of those positions, but we still have to have the personnel to keep this county going. And as we grow in facilities and resources, whether it's our facility maintenance department and all the growth we've had with buildings and grounds, we have to maintain that. We need the people to do it. So you're seeing some growth in those budgets. There's some growth in some positions in corrections, which is much needed. IT, our TDD, and water and sewer, but collectively 42 new positions that'll grow our number of FTEs to just under 1,090 positions. But again, much needed. Department directors will hit on that as they make their presentations and why those positions are needed. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is our property tax millage, again at 3.8308 mils. We anticipate that total would be $111 million. Now we budget at 95% collection, so that's why you see that $105,000 number. That is, or excuse me, yes, 105 million, excuse me. That is our property tax values collected at 95%. That's just conservative budgeting we do. We typically receive somewhere in excess of 97% in collections, almost 98%, but we budget at 95. So that'll generate, as you see, about a $6 million additional dollars, $7 million additional dollars in revenue. And again, the budget across all funds, 620 or 645 million. Ad valorem tax revenue distribution. This is just a breakdown on how we will spend that 105 million. The bulk of that goes in to support the general fund. And that's both your BCC general fund offices and the constitutional offices that this board supports. As you know, the sheriff's office is fully funded by property taxes, as is the supervisor of election, and then a smaller allocation to the other constitutional offices. The MSTU millage, holding the line on our MSTU millage at 0.299 mils. The last time this millage was raised was, I believe, in the 12 and 13 budget year. And that was when we added the stormwater into the MSTU because we did not have sufficient funding to operate the stormwater division within Public Works. So we increased it, and at that time, again, that's 11 years ago that we did that. But that funding is used to support both our county unincorporated parks and our stormwater division. I believe for Jason's purposes, this funding represents the funding for his personnel and O&M expenses within his stormwater division. His capital dollars are typically carved out of the surtax and other funding mechanisms to fund capital projects. Also, with this millage rate, we estimate collections at 95% of what that value is forecast at. The rollback rate based on the current year is 0.285 on this particular millage. Property values the last 10 years, I hit on this earlier. I think this slide says a lot. When you look back 10 years from 2016 to today, that's almost a doubling of our property values here in Okaloosa County. We just returned from our Florida Association of Counties annual conference here a couple of weeks ago. I met with my colleagues in our Florida Association of County Managers group, and this was pretty much the theme throughout the state of Florida with my counterparts throughout Florida. And they're seeing, over this 10-year period, phenomenal property tax growth. And that equates to additional revenue that we need, obviously, to run this vast county machine that we have and all the various departments and services that we provide here in Okaloosa County. This gives you a graphical representation of the millage, where the millage trend has been over the last 10 years, and what that equates to by way of revenue and the revenue that we generate from that millage. This is a graphical representation of your MSTU collections and rate history. Again, like the previous slide, where your millage is at 0.299 mils and what that collection equates to over the last 10 years. We like to provide this slide to the board. We've done so for several years. This shows you where we kind of stack up with our neighboring counties as it relates to our property tax millage and our aggregate millage. The aggregate millage is a formula based on your property tax millage and your MSTU. So that municipal services taxing unit that goes to support both stormwater and your county unincorporated parks makes up a percentage of that. But that tax is not applied to every resident or every property in the county. The municipal jurisdictions do not have to pay that tax. So this is totally the unincorporated areas of Okaloosa County that contribute to the MSTU. But collectively, you'll see that aggregate millage is below 4. We take a lot of pride in keeping it below 4. That's our goal every year as we build these budgets and bring them to the board. We typically draw a comparison to Monroe County because Monroe County is the lowest tax burden the aggregate tax rate in the state. But again, it's the Florida Keys, so it's the most expensive real estate in the state of Florida too. So you're getting a lot more return off properties within that jurisdiction than what we see in our part of the state, simply because of the value of the real estate. We draw a comparison to Walton. Walton has low millage as well. And then Santa Rosa, Escambia, and Bay. So the last survey I saw from the Florida Association of Counties, I believe there were 5 counties in the state of Florida that had an aggregate millage below 4, and we're one of those 5. So again, we take a lot of pride in that, and we appreciate the board's leadership every year in keeping that tax burden low for our citizens. This next slide is the unrestricted fund balance, what we refer to as our general fund reserve. So you see the blue part of this graph shows that policy decision the board made several years ago, as far as always wanting to allocate at least 2 months of operating expenditure in a general fund reserve. We firm that number up each year as we go through our audit process, our year-end audit. And again, I expect that number to climb above 26 million once we have our audited numbers. But that's where that number hits. Now, we have reserve above and beyond that, and we typically bring that to the board. We usually do that in our budget policy workshop earlier in the year, as to how the board would like to spend any excess dollars above and beyond that. We allocate that to projects, assignments to projects. We do that with our auditors and with our administrative team. That is brought back to the board for the board's endorsement and consensus of that expenditure plan. And that's why you see those separation in between the green figures, which is that number above and beyond what our policy number is, and then the policy number, which is that 2 months of operating expenditure. So this gives you a graphic representation of that. 2022 is a little bit inflated. Again, that's CARES year. We were getting CARES dollars as part of our budget, which grew that number, as we did not allocate a lot of that initially to projects. We have since done that at the board's guidance, and that's part of your expenditure plan going forward. Just want to touch very briefly on a few accomplishments. Obviously, TDD and Alex doing a phenomenal job with our artificial reef program, bringing in a lot of resources and grant dollars to elevate that artificial reef program. We continue that work. Water and sewer replacement of the Okaloosa Island water booster station, doing that. And that water station needed replacement. It was in a sad state of repair, and they sunk resources into that as part of their capital plan and got that project done. Bob White stormwater improvements. Tracy's work with the update of that 40-year-old minimum standards and rules for the airport. I know that was a big lift for this board and took several months to get there, but we finally have gotten that behind us. Construction of PJ Adams Parkway, such a relief to drive that section of road now from Crabapple back to 85, 4 lanes of road that are open. That is drastically improved. I can tell you, driving that route several days during the week has drastically improved the traffic flow in the morning commute. So glad to see that work done. They continue the work, finishing that connection to Highway 90. Jason will speak to that. I see the bridge deck working still going on. So they're trying to get that bridge deck over the railroad done and then make those connection points north and south. So it'd be nice to have that roadway done, but the work doesn't stop there. And Jason will speak to that when he does his presentation. We've got a lot of design work done as part of our surtax dollars and our water and sewer team and some of their capital projects, and those departments will speak to that. And then the large urbanized area designation for Okaloosa County, that's good. That's good news that we've gotten that, because that increases funding that comes back to this county. Plans for 2025. East-west baggage claim expansion. Tracy's working that project now at the airport, along with other projects ongoing at the airport. I talked about surtax, multiple surtax projects in the mix. It is critically important for everyone to know that the projects we're getting done today, we would not be able to get done with existing funding sources absent that surtax. It absolutely takes that surtax to get a Southwest bypass done. We would have not been able to advocate in front of Triumph for their funding or DOT for their companion funding to get that $200+ million project done. So that surtax continues to pay dividends. The 50 and 5 program being a prime example. When I sat in Jason's role as Public Works Director, 10, 11, 12 years ago, we had 200+ miles of dirt road with a fleet of 8 graders, and that's how we maintain that roadway. Jason will speak to that, but they have made considerable inroads into getting those roads paved, which is critically important in this county, both from a maintenance perspective and an environmental perspective. So good work there. Bridge to Bridge multi-use path. We had the groundbreaking for that yesterday. Good event on Okaloosa Island. That work will be underway soon in completing that 4-mile segment between Okaloosa Island and Destin. So certainly wanted to highlight that. Veterans Park, the Phase 2 project with the living shoreline, both there and along Highway 98. Big project we hope to get started here soon. Craig's working that along with his team. Shoal River Ranch wastewater plant. I believe Michael is presenting today. I don't see him, but I think they've got crews out there now that are actually clearing ground for that work. So we're getting ready to start that wastewater plant project here very soon. Critically needed for growth in the north end of the county, and especially that East Crestview corridor. What we're trying to do at Shoal River Ranch, 2 major housing developments planned for that area. Critically important that we have safe sanitary sewer provided out there, and our team is getting that work done. New public works facility, new transfer station. Jason will speak to that. We've been working with the design team now for several months, planning potential relocation of our public works operation, freeing up that prime real estate there on South 85 and Crestview that we could turn around and make available to help offset and fund part of what we're trying to do with the public works compound. Okaloosa Island, West Highway 90, water main replacements. Michael and the water and sewer team will speak to those projects when they do their presentation, and then continue cooperation with JD and the clerk of courts and upgrades to the county's ERP system. So we're appreciative of the board's guidance to upgrade that system. Budget workshop schedule. Again, we're here today. We're going to cover a lot of ground between sheriff's office, courts, HR. A lot of our operational departments will speak today, as well as transit. And then in Shalimar on the 23rd, we have other constitutional officers, some of our other departments, and some of those agencies that rely on board funding. Once we get through that process, again, we pulled the budget together in August in preparation for September public hearings. So you have your first public hearing on the 3rd. That's at 5:01 at the chambers here in the Crestview Courthouse, followed by September 17th, the second public hearing where we have the final adoption of the spending plan for the next fiscal year. And that will take place at the Shalimar Board Chambers. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation, high-level overview of what is being presented to you. We have a number of speakers this morning that'll give you insight into their budget in much more detail than I gave you just then. But again, it is a pleasure and honor to serve as your county administrator and take the guidance that this board has given over the last 10 years and posture us for where we are today, which is much stronger, much more robust than where we were 10 years ago. And that's because of your leadership. So thank you for that, commissioners. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thanks for the work that you do. Let's move to court administration.
Court folks here.
Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
while we're waiting, I just want to say congratulations to Mr. Hofstad. He's worked hard on this budget. This is not an easy task. 10 years ago, when I first came here, of course, we've had the economy in our favor. We were coming out of the Great Recession. But that said, we could have spent money differently than we have. And this has been a very fiscally conservative county. And we are the shining light, I have to say, on the panhandle in how we handle money. So thank you, Mr. Hofstad, for your work in putting this budget together and the teamwork that our commission has been able to do over the years to be fiscally conservative. Thank you.
All right, court administration.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Ursula Hall and I'm the Court Operations Manager for Okaloosa County. I'm here this morning to discuss the upcoming budget for court administration. Shortly, I'll be joined by Kelly Huckabee and she will address the budget for pretrial services. For next year, 2024-2025, no budget increases were requested for any of the accounts under court administration. With that, are there any questions?
All right. That's great.
Could you-
Yeah,
Right to the point. Could you give some speaking points to the sheriff? Because I'm sure he will not be that brief.
Any questions? All right.
No, perfect. All right. Thank you.
We did ask for a few slight increases, but we still had an overall reduction in our budget. Unfortunately, it's time for several new computers and a copy machine. So you'll notice we did also ask for a slight increase in our overtime, and that's just due to having to have somebody work 365 days a year for holidays. But other than that, if you have any questions.
Thank you for making that change. It's necessary. That'd
All
be
right.
great.
Thank you.
Human resources and risk management.
Good morning. I will not be that fast, but I will be quick. Are you changing the slides or? Okay, which one just to the right?
Yeah.
Okay. I won't read the slides to you, but I did highlight on the slides for the public, the major responsibilities of the departments. We have HR and risk, but these are the major responsibilities of human resources, everything from recruiting and hiring to employee and labor relations. Budget request for HR. We have 17 positions between HR and risk management. 11 are dedicated to human resources. We split the positions, the director positions, my position, and the payroll and benefits supervisor between the two departments. There are no positions requested for HR or risk. Major accomplishments, all of those are important, but I will just highlight one or two for you that we are proud to be able to offer so many trainings. We have a phenomenal training director, the training coordinator within our department who is able to offer some countywide trainings to all of our managers and supervisors. The other thing is that we implemented retention interviews. That was a big change for the county. And I'm going to highlight that a little bit later in the slideshow. Current and ongoing initiatives. One of the big things for the board is that we have been having meetings with our directors, a PTO task team, and some other financial experts within the county. And DCA Fitzgerald and myself will be meeting one-on-ones with you commissioners to kind of give you the update on that, hoping for a 10-1 implementation for a PTO conversion. Thought that it would be interesting for you to see some employee demographics. What is interesting here is that our service years on average is 7 years, which is down from previous years. The other thing is our average age is 51 compared to other counties. Escambia, average age is 43, Bay 44, and Walton 46. So it may be something that we may need to look at targeting that younger workforce and may bring some initiatives back to you. Turnover data. Our turnover data, it has increased 1% from last year. The department has historically brought that to you for the calendar year. I think we are in a better position as far as vacancies. And so I'm going to highlight a couple of things for you. I also ran some numbers. October 22 to June of 23, we were at 16% as far as turnover data. And for this current year, October to June, 12%. So I do think we're in a better position. The pie graph right there that you're seeing basically comes from exit interviews. 45% of those voluntary resignations said that they left for a better salary or advancement opportunities. 19% for personal reasons, 14% for relocation. We have a lot of military. 11% for retirement, and 11% were dissatisfied with management or their work conditions in some way. Recruitment retention data, that just gives you a highlight over the last 3 years of the hires and terminations within the county, and you do have year-to-date numbers there.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Chairman, turnover data, you had some good comparables there. You mentioned to some of our adjacent counties or nearby counties. Any comparables on the turnover data?
Yes, I can tell you that we were a little higher. But I looked at Escambia County, I think they were 17%. I thought they were most comparable to us because they do have EMS and a county jail. You know, Walton County, comparing theirs was really low. It was around 8%, but they do not have emergency services, and their jail comes under the sheriff, so it's not included. Bay County was around 15%.
Okay, and so then breaking by department, then you obviously see higher turnover in some of those.
I
departments that
do,
you
and
mentioned.
I have some data coming up on that might highlight some of it.
Thank you.
Retention snapshot for you. I mentioned that we went to these retention interview forms. Basically, this replaces our performance evaluation, and it requires supervisors to have at least one yearly one-on-one conversation where they ask some very important questions like, what do you like about your job? What can I do to make that better for you? Have you ever thought about leaving the county? And if you have, do you still feel that way? We had some leery supervisors about, you know, being very vulnerable and asking those questions. But what I'm hearing from departments is that they have been surprisingly pleased with it. It is only as good as the follow-up. So what we're doing in HR is we're following up with those directors. When we see those come through, like we may have an electrician that says, I need more training. So I may follow up with Mr. Hackett and say, I saw this, but I'm not seeing what happened after that. And he's saying, yeah, we looked at it, I got another supervisor involved with that, and we're definitely going to offer more training there. So I've also heard where we've had some personnel issues that they didn't even know were going on because you don't know how an employee's feeling sometimes unless you ask, that those things have been worked out. So I think it's a good process. What we found of what our employees like, 54% say they stay for the job and the people. That's not surprising because we have some great people here at Okaloosa. 16% say they like the schedule. We have a lot of employees that work 4/10s, and we have a lot of departments, including mine, that have tried to implement some flexible schedules when it's possible. We have 16% that say they like the pay and the benefits, and 14% say they stay for the security and the FRS retirement. Why would they leave? If they've ever thought about leaving, what were the reasons? 41% for compensation, 23% may have had an issue with their supervisor at some point in time. 21% said work environment. That was everything from I work in the heat to I may have a personnel issue within my department. And 15% said that they might have thought about it for personal reasons. So, and just to tell you, we implemented that in March, so that data is small. So I'm hoping that gleans a lot more information for next year.
Great.
Staffing levels, this is just a snapshot, I think, of what you're referring to, Commissioner Boyles, but we're in a much better place in some of the departments like EMS. You can see out of 157 budgeted positions, the end of June, we have 7 openings. A lot better position than we have been in the past. Now, there are some departments that historically have been hard to attract and hard to fill, and that may remain. Corrections, 16 openings, that's critical that they have employees there. So that's an 11% vacancy rate for them. In growth management as well, there are some things like building inspectors that are hard to, attract and retain. We are doing some things to look at the pay for that, and have reached out to the colleges that have building construction programs to try to attract some talent for Elliott. Risk management, won't read you the responsibilities here either, but everything from self-insured workers' compensation program to the county's indigent burial program are handled by risk management. This a little bit of a fib on the fully staffed. We were at the time this was published, but we do have a safety position open that is advertised. Small changes to the actual department budget. We had a virtual safety training program that was in the self-insurance budget, and finance thought it was better in the department, so that has been moved. Major accomplishments, thankful for the board for adopting the safety manual that was overdue. We've been trying to analyze work comp incidents, and through some grant money that we get through insurance companies, we've been able to add some extra supplies to FM corrections, some lifts for EMS. The big one, two big ones on here, we implemented Care 24. That is a triage line for work comp so that someone with a sprained ankle doesn't go to an emergency room. We're hoping that that's going to be a savings that we'll be able to show in the next year. The big one for us, and I will highlight this just a little bit later, is that we have eliminated the self-insurance fund deficit. We have been at a deficit in that self-insurance reserve for over 20 years, and we're in a positive position.
Mr. Chairman, and when you say been in a deficit position, what you mean is a deficit relative to the actuarial estimation of what needs to be in that account for future
That is
claims?
correct for unfunded liabilities.
But for the
Right.
future unfunded liabilities, in other words, it's not a situation where we've actually had to borrow against the general fund.
No, if we were to have those claims come through, we would not have had the money. At this point in time, we're 590,000 in a positive position.
Okay, I just want to make sure everyone
Yes,
understood.
yes,
It's
yes,
not
yes.
actually been taken from general fund. It's just that future unfunded liability. And so we're now actually running well ahead of the estimated.
That is
future
correct.
Liability.
That is correct. Funding sources, this just gives an overall picture. You know, we do an allocation to the departments for workers' compensation because we're self-insured, and the other insurance is what the employees call it. That funds the insurances and claims, legal fees associated with that. Both of these together total $5.4 million in allocation, and only 28% of that is allocated to general fund. What are the reserve accounts? I'm just happy to have some slides on reserve accounts over the years that we didn't have anything in these, and now these are positives for me. So you're aware that the board, that we have different carriers for property insurance, and that we are now one of those carriers, that we assumed a little more risk about a year ago. FEMA requires when we do that we have a system for fixed contributions and a formalized plan to pay losses. The board has been responsive to that, and we have 500,000 that the board has allocated over the last 2 years toward that. This is separate from the self-insurance reserve. We just talked about that, which is at 590,000. This is just saying hooray. Historically, we have been in a deficit position, and we are not now. Annual workers' compensation costs. This is just a highlight over the last couple of years. This is all in cost because we are self-insured. So this is our medical, our indemnity, our legal fees for running that program. Year to date, with 1 quarter left, we're at 523,000. So this has been a good year. Auto, physical, and liability cost. You can see a line for claims and settlements and ones for subrogation or recoveries. You'll notice that that was pretty large last year. That is because we actually got some money, $169,000 back from an ambulance that had been right the previous year. Liability claims paid. 23 was a difficult year for us. You can see that we spent quite a bit. The darker line is what we recovered. That amount in 23 is due to some lawsuit costs such as Timberview. Employee benefits, other good news, no medical premium increase. 3 years ago, we got a slight rate decrease. Last year, a rate hold, and this year, a rate hold. We do have a 7% dental increase that equates $37,000 to the board. Good news with this, we've done some evaluation of the card services that come with HSA and found that we are doing the majority of that work anyway. So we are bringing that card services. We are working directly with HSA Bank and removing the middleman with that, which is a savings to the county of $21,000. So there will be little difference between the two to the county. And we're asking that the HSA contributions remain the same at $1,500 per employee, which is very generous. And the last slide, just to highlight again, another reserve is that pro share, just to let you know that we have $2.5 million in there. We have had $50,000 in interest on that money. And so that is there should we have issues in the future.
Mr. Chairman, so what would be the plan there is continue to hold that for offset of future increases? I know that's what we've used before in the past.
I think the plan would be if we had increases and stayed fully insured, we could offset those things. If we get to a place where we need to go self-insured for that, which I anticipate at some point in time, the county would, the size of our county, we could use that money as that seed money for that.
Excellent. Okay.
And last, the wellness program, it is funded through our contract with Florida Blue. Just to highlight to you, our employees are engaged with this. We appreciate the board continuing to fund this. They can earn up to $400 for doing wellness initiatives. In 2021, we paid out employees $20,000. This 2023, we paid $86,000. Our employees are using it and engaged. We had 428 employees that were engaged with this program last year. And I think that equates over to our health and our health savings. Any questions?
Money that's held in reserve, do you have it invested in CDs, or I see there's a little bit of interest collected?
I couldn't speak to that. Faye could probably speak to that better. I just know that there is some interest on it.
Mr. Clerk?
Madam Commissioner, that's my job.
Ah,
And we, because of the current rates for bonds and treasuries and those kind of things, which are very risk averse, we're risk averse on our investments. But because those are fairly high at the moment and have been for the last few years, we're seeing pretty good returns on all of the surplus dollars of the county to the tune of over 400 million at the moment. And across all of those surpluses across all the different accounts, we're averaging $1.5 million a month in interest return. So,
excellent. Thank you.
so
Any
yes,
others?
ma'am.
Anything else? Thank you.
All right, Sheriff Aiden.
Morning.
Morning.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for commissioners for your time this morning. I got a few things I want to go over before we get in the budget. It's just, usually I kind of give a 1-year overview on what we've done thanks to the commissioners. And first I want to say, for the commissioners that are going out, it's sad because you guys have been great partners for us, for the county. I don't mean going out, but, leaving the commission and I just pray that I believe in our citizens that we'll find some good candidates that are going to take your places, but you're going to have big shoes to fill. And you guys have been fiscally conservative and very supportive. So I just want to thank you for that. Want to go over just kind of, I'm in my 4th year here. So I kind of want to talk about some of the things that you have done to help us be competitive and be successful, and also to be able to use technology. And obviously some of the alternative funds we've had, sales tax and those sort of things that have benefited for us to be able to focus on trying to get the best employee benefits and pay and be competitive and be, a top tier agency here, which has helped in recruitment and retention, which I'm going to show you here in a few minutes. And certainly also allowed us to be able to fight crime, which again, you'll see statistics that are going to be able to really kind of mind blowing as to what these new technologies, the criminals use technology, and it's certainly nice for us, the law enforcement, to be able to use technology in our advantage as well. And technology, I mean, let's face it, technology is great, but it also allows for manning to be out on the street more and be able to focus on being more proactive, which is a total testament as to why the crime rate's down. So first and foremost, we talk about retention and recruitment. Some of the efforts that you folks have helped us with, like our cadet program, has allowed this retention rate to be decreased, or our percentage to be actually better than the statewide average of 7%. We're at 4.1%. And that's sometimes we're full, sometimes we lose bodies, but certainly we have worked on getting those numbers down of vacancies, because those vacancies absolutely affect the number of bodies that are out there in a green and white car driving around. Dispatch, nationwide, statewide, we've seen huge numbers of vacancies within dispatch. Dispatch is a job where you're sitting in there. They don't get the high risk retirement that the deputies get, and that's sad. We've looked at trying to get legislation passed to be able to do that because they're dealing with high risk. They're dealing with the same people on their worst days that we are, and oftentimes they don't even get an end conclusion. They have to kind of research it to even find out what that is. And I know I've said that to y'all in the past. But what we've done with the help of getting salary increases and things like that is allowed our dispatch that were living in Milton and living in these outside areas from Okaloosa County because of the cost of living here. We've allowed to retain those because before we've done those measures, we were losing those to those agencies because they didn't have to make a 3-hour round trip to work every day and sit and do the same job. So kudos to that is that we have really put a dent in our vacancy rate of our dispatch. So we're certainly sitting around 4 dispatchers vacant right now. Cadet program is something that I know I talked about, and I know we mentioned that we don't always want to have someone that's 19, 20 years old, although we've had lots of successful careers at the sheriff's office that retired starting in this career field at 19 and 20 and did 30, 32 years with us. But we certainly love people with life experience. We certainly hire military. I mean, we're sitting around 32% of our military, our staff is military, and certainly a lot more than them are DOD and military affiliated. With what comes with bringing on military is, we're a paramilitary organization, similar rank structures, similar rules and regulations, and obviously familiarity with firearms and weapons. But the cadet retention has been huge. 94% of them have graduated and passed, and we've retained 84% of them, which we've only lost a couple of them, and it's just from transfers and that sort of thing. Representative, this is a huge thing that I forgot to actually talk about at the Women's Republican Club, because I think it's a really, this is a male-dominated environment. We all know that. It historically has been. And when I was at the FBI National Academy, our numbers were sitting around 12%, and the national average was 9%. The national average is now 12% of women and females. So nationally, we've come up across the board, across the country with women in law enforcement. But we sit at 18%. It's a huge number. And in fact, over the last year, we were almost 50-50 split male-female hires, which is absolutely, so that number is part of the reason why that number's come up significantly. Also, women in leadership positions in law enforcement is 3% nationally. We're at 11%, which is huge. People of color, all minorities represented in 2000. We took a comparison from the last 4 years and the 4 years before that. We were hovering around 10 to 13%, and since 2021, we're up at 16%. Now that 3 to 6%, sounds like a small number. It's huge. It's 30 to 50%. I mean, that's a large number increase. Greater representation of people in the Black community. 2015, 2020, one of the first things I did was meet with the NAACP, and I met with certain pastors, and they were saying, hey, what's the representation you have of the Black officers that you have? We were at 5.5% when I researched it at the time. And that's dismal. And I asked for their help, and we were doing diligent efforts to try and increase that. Proud to say that that's at 8%. And again, 2.5%, 3% doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 30% increase. And so we've done a lot of things, efforts to be able to go to events at churches in the community, being more actively involved, using our community resource deputies to go to these events and go to recruiting events. So I think that that's also helped. On-site mental health counselor, it's something that we did for ourselves personally. We contracted a licensed mental health counselor. I talked to Commissioner Kelchel about this. PTSD, stresses in law enforcement is everybody, knows how much of that goes on, and our governor was aware of it, and he signed a bill which will give law enforcement, public safety about $10 million. But how that looks to us in Okaloosa County is yet to be determined. We don't know. I mean, there's a lot of agencies. It's not just for sheriff's offices, not just the 67 sheriffs that sit, but also police departments, rightfully so. And other first responders are going to benefit from that 10 million. And that's going to go pretty quickly across all the many agencies. So we wanted to be proactive. We didn't want to sit on our heels and wait. So we contracted with and we did it not as a FTE or a full-time employee. We did it for the purposes of doing a contract to see what that looked like down the road. But he's been so beneficial to our agency, and many of them are actually doing self-referrals for anything from marriage counseling, financial counseling, and those sort of things. Training, I mean, that's been obviously a source of question, and I can go down the list here, but you can read for yourselves. We do firearms training, psychological training, less lethal, reviewing of our use of force, reviewing of our policies and legal aspects. These are just the minimum. And those are required every 4 years by the state. We do these 4 times more than the state requires. We do them annually. And in addition to those sort of things, let me also add that, our use of force numbers, I mean, we've had 34,000 roughly arrests that we do, in less than 4% of those we use force. And when I say force, I mean any force used. There's processes in place, there's checks and balances, there's oversight, there's reviews. And less than 4% of our arrests result in any type of arm bars to be able to put them in handcuffs. All that stuff has to be documented. And that number is less than 4%. Some of the additional training outside of the state minimums are, decision-making exercises that we do. We use the RIGHT training, which is racial intelligence and training engagement. That's something that we put people through in the very onset. We've actually done train the trainer, where we've gone to those training and actually trained our own personnel so we can pass that forward. And our plan is to, in the next 6 months, roll everyone in the agency back through that. We also use crisis intervention training, which is CIT training, nationally recognized for dealing with people with mental challenges, or maybe they have communication issues, or maybe they're on on the spectrum, or maybe they're on medication. But it also deals with crisis events and how we as law enforcement deal with those things. So it's a nationally recognized, and it's a multi-agencies that we usually, when we host those trainings, have people from all over the state come to those trainings. Critical incident management, that's something for all of our supervisors. It was recently asked, hey, is this something that you did just recently? No, it's something we've continually ongoing have done for years. And it's just something that we just recently put on another annual event of that. Force Science Institute, it's a nationally recognized use of force entity. We're accredited, obviously, as you know. We were just accredited again in 2022, where they reviewed our use of force policies, and we had 10 of the mandatory standards, and all 22 recommended standards were met. But in addition to that, we wanted Force Science to come in and just take an extra layer of steps to look at our use of force policies and make sure that they're weren't necessarily needed for any kind of changes or revisions or anything like that. We added a sergeant. This was done a while back. We had earmarked another sergeant. We didn't add a body. We took a body from one particular area of the sheriff's office and moved them to training, just because we wanted added layers of, the process has been in place as far as review and all that, but we wanted to have someone that was specifically looking at our reviews of our use of force policies, and it would be inconsistent instead of multiple supervisors looking at one specific person. And that's gonna bode well for us, being able to look at different trends and how we can develop and better that. Criminal investigations, these are some huge things that, there was a 1981 case where someone dumped a lady on the side of I-10, and he was a nationally renowned serial killer called the Happy Face Killer. And it brought national attention to this particular case. He did a proffer and basically admitted to it because he didn't want to come to Florida and face the electric chair. So he is going to have life in prison in the state that he's in, but he did confess to that case among many other cases that he had committed. We added a CIS investigator, which is a criminal investigation investigator. Some of the thing, and 3 SIS, which is special investigation. The difference is CIS is our white collar crime or our homicides. that sort of thing. Our SIS is more the internet crimes against children, which we've talked about adding, and you were so kind to let us add those positions. And it allowed us to be more proactive. And what that's done in numbers is we've seized $2.2 million in narcotics and seized in assets, money and forfeiture, 2.2 million. So nearly $4.5 million in assets and narcotics that we've seized and gotten off the street, which is incredible. 61 high-risk arrests for sex offenders. We've done sex offender stings because of the additional internet crimes against children. And that has allowed us to have 61 people that are trying to, prey on our children of our community, and we've gotten them off the street, which is great. On our license plate readers, those are things, and don't get confused. They're not, they are not your traffic light citations. We don't have that. And at least the sheriff's office doesn't have that. But those license plate readers, we put in something called a hit list if we have someone with a stolen car. And so the things that have come out of that, just since we've implemented this the last couple of years, 2 homicide suspects have been apprehended, 5 kidnapping, shooting, carjacking, robbery suspects, 12 missing persons have been found, and 56 stolen vehicles recovered. It's a pretty huge return on our investment. I mean, Real-Time Crime Center, this is a model that not just us, but a lot of agencies, Bay County has one, Walton County has one, I believe Escambia County has one. Real-Time Crime Center is kind of like a dispatch on steroids. We have dispatch and they're plenty busy. And one, I want to thank you too for the remodel that you approved and gave us in dispatch, because it's really helped morale in there, and it's also probably helped our retention, I'm sure. Real-Time Crime Center, it monitors our LPRs. It gives us real-time access. If there's something going on at a school, a lockdown or something like that, all the camera systems are tied into here. This is where our criminal analysts that do all of the background, if we, hey, we need you to research this Facebook and find this suspect. He's hiding out somewhere. We need to know. Those criminal analysts are doing that job every day, but then they turn their efforts to something like this, and it allows us to go upstairs. It's at our investigations divisions where this is housed, and we can go in there and actually monitor everything and kind of call some shots if we need to from there. 8% reduction in reported crime. I mean, it's kind of no surprise. Some of that is the technology we've used, and I think a lot of agencies around the country are utilizing the technology like I've already mentioned. But the 8% reduction in crime is something that is, you'll see that trends with the FBI's national trends that are down nationwide. This is the big number, 26% reduction in violent crime in our county over the last 4 years. And if you look at 2020, the year before I took, and use that number, we're actually around 35%. And let me put it in perspective. We had 4,005 violent crimes in 2022. In 2023, it was 2,808. That's a huge drop in violent crime. And again, a lot of that is a testament of having more bodies on the streets. And it's also a testament of the technology, the technology that we've had in place, the Real-Time Crime Center, all the different tools that you've allowed us to have. Oh, that's nice little. Good job, Craig. Hey, anyway, community resource deputies, this is something that, community policing has been around for decades. It was an old business model, old terminology that we brought back when I took office, because we have had, with law enforcement, without adding different, resources or teams or units, if you don't add bodies, then you have to figure out how you want to reallocate resources. Well, what we did was, instead of having a community policing team like we used to have that would go around the entire county and what we call kind of wolf packing in areas, we had that in our street crimes. But what we've done is dedicated and move those resources without adding bodies to be fiscally responsible, for one. But two, we've added our community resource deputies, was probably the most valuable thing that I've done since becoming the sheriff, is putting these community resource deputies in each district. As you know, or if you don't know, we are broken into 3 different districts on our operations side. North of the double bridges to Alabama, and then the south end is split into 2 different ones. It's basically on population, which we'll probably have to look at doing 2 up here, because quite naturally the north end has more population now than what there was when those districts were kind of set up. Anyway, We have 3 different districts that have dedicated community resource deputies. And what's so awesome as the sheriff is I'll call Tim with Bo if it's an event, and people love that dog. That dog's probably the coolest thing that we bought since well, actually we were given the dog by Santa Rosa County. We didn't buy it. He's the most popular member of the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office, is that dog right there. But I will tell you, Tim is passionate about what he does, and Tim is at events at schools on the weekends, at churches. If there's an event, he's there. But it's not just about that. It's not just about building the relationships. What it also is that when people, and I'll get to my community citizen advisory board, but when people come and they may work, I'll say Nico Stubblefield, Eglin Federal. I use her as an example. She's got a large sphere of influence at the credit union. That's a large, employer of our citizens. If she has an employee that says, I got people speeding down my street, and I really would like, she'll call me, or she can call me, have a direct line through me, through my citizen advisory board, and say, hey, this person doesn't know you, Sheriff, but can you get, she's hesitant to call or whatever. We'll get a message board out there. We'll put community resources on there to work on traffic issues. Just had a lady complain about Country Club Road and how people are speeding on the straightaway. So we're trying to do some enforcement there, but that's what those community resource deputies have been absolutely instrumental in us doing. I didn't even read that. But basically I'm explaining to you what they do, which has been critically important to building those relationships in those communities. I mean, we will put somebody on there and they focus on, and they know the people and they know the businesses and they know the citizens in their specific district. And I'll leave. I mean, unless you have questions on this, we can go into the budget from there, but I just kind of wanted to share that with you. One more thing that I don't have on here, and I admonished my major for not putting this on here, is my citizen advisory board. My citizen advisory board is something that I created when I was taking office. Me and my chief deputy and undersheriff sat around and we created a citizen advisory board. And what that is it takes different areas of spheres of influence, like I mentioned, Nico and Marianne Wines and different people from the school board, fishermen from Destin, a farmer in the North End, a pastor in Sylvania Heights. I've got all these different people, again, that may not have a direct line to the sheriff like certain other entities do. And if they have an area in their specific community that they want to talk to, and they also provide input to us. I just had a citizen advisory board. I went through this whole PowerPoint presentation with them, and they provide input. I mean, one of the biggest things was Colonel Whitner from from Hurlburt, excuse me. He said, hey, what are you doing about recruiting, minorities? And it was something that I was passionate about when I first took office. And as you can see, I'm proud to say we've improved those numbers. So that's really all I have to say on the PowerPoint. On the budget, you all have everything we have really in front of you on our budget. I'll be glad to answer questions on any line items you may have questions on, or if I can't, we certainly have our CFO here. But what I'm proud to say is that, I know we have a large budget. I know we have, and it's been hard to wrap your head around. I'm a numbers guy. I've got finance and background experience, and I'm certainly experienced in looking at these numbers and trying to absorb all the different line items. But what I will tell you is that, we're cognizant that we have tried to lower the percentage of ad valorem that we have taken and lower the percentage of increase that we've gotten. Now, we've been fortunate. Half-cent sales tax has helped us with things like the training center. That's an incredible asset to us, and all the different things that we've purchased, the radio system and the new CAD, RMS, and all the things that the board ultimately approves through those alternative measures that otherwise would eat into those things of being able to provide a competitive or best wage for and benefits to our employees. But this is the lowest percentage increase that we've asked for in 7 years. And it's the lowest ad valorem ask since we've been tracking it since 2011. I don't know what it looked like before that, but that's 15 years. So we're going in the right direction. But as I've told all of y'all in private, if things slow down, which ultimately that's what happens in our world with ad valorem taxes, that percentage will obviously change or go up. And certainly we understand that, but we've been trying to be cognizant of that and doing the best we can with what we do have. I know we have a lot of contracts outside of this budget, and some of them are halfway in this budget and halfway out, like the SRO program and stuff. So, but anyway, without further ado, you have any questions for me?
Thanks for coming in under budget, first of all. I'm glad you were able to. It's the largest part of our consideration is your budget always, but it's the number one priority among our citizens to have public safety, followed closely by roads. Those two things. First of all, I applaud you for bringing in a licensed mental health counselor for your employees. There's nothing more important in our society right now than mental health. In my opinion, COVID really has shown us the impact of what it's like to be alone. I think with people working out of their homes, they're finding that they're lonely. There is a family work. If your work family and your home family, and there's a significance to it. And I think we'll eventually see that people want to return to work for that reason. The one question I had, I'm coming to a question. You talked about your recruitment of women. I'm thrilled about that. I've met some of your new female deputies. I'm very impressed with them. I don't want to name any names, but I'm very impressed. And the one question I had was, you mentioned the Black community, the outreach. We have a large Hispanic population, many of whom speak Spanish as their first language and second language, English, not so great. Do you have some Hispanic deputies? Do you have those who can speak Spanish on the force?
Yeah, we actually give them a stipend for being willing to come out and being called out after hours. We have several that do speak Spanish. We've actually offered that to people that are non-Hispanic that want to take those classes and be able to get that stipend, that we'll pay for that. But addition to that, also on my citizen advisory board, I have a Hispanic preacher on that board as well to be able to represent that demographic within our community. And he's been very helpful and been, helpful in those situations. But yeah, we do have a large Hispanic community. I learned that the first time I went and spoke to Choctawhatchee High School. I'm used to, like y'all, listening politely, and I could hear people talking over there, and it was kind of like Craig's phone over there. It was a little bit of a distraction. And, but, I kind of laughed about it. But I was like, what are these kids just being this rude for, and this a grown, like, I didn't realize that there was a translator telling them what I was saying. And that's where it really resonated with me. Wow. And my nephew was going to Pryor, and Pryor is one of the largest Hispanic demographic, schools that we have. I mean, there's a largely Hispanic community there.
It's nothing like it when you start speaking Spanish to a group of Hispanic folks. They are so happy at just levels that you can speak their language. It's wonderful. I've but was able to brush up on mine the years that I worked at Catholic Charities, and have continued to. I took 3 years, but never have lived in a Latin country, and it makes a difference. But honestly, it's amazing when you walk around our population. So many people speak English and Spanish now fluently. And it's nice to know another language. I often joke and I say, what do you call somebody who only speaks one language, an Americano? I mean, it's sad because all other countries speak other languages from birth, and it's a shame.
Well, I'll say this as a personal testament. My daughter never has taken a Spanish class and speaks fluent Spanish because she's friends with people, some local Hispanic young girls that she just hung out with at Choctaw. And believe it or not, it was so valuable. We took the whole family and my brother's family to the Dominican after my first election. And we just went there to celebrate and take a week vacation. And we wouldn't have been able to order food or anything else without my daughter there. And her goal is to, when she finishes her education, to go and go abroad and teach Spanish and English, So yeah, she's learned it just from being immersed into the community. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for leaving the picture of Pat and all the kids on the screen while you finish.
I'm sorry?
speaking. Thank you for leaving the picture of Pat. And all the
Yeah,
kids on the
Pat
screen.
retired recently, but
Discuss.
man, look at that.
Hey, do you have other languages offered as well that you do the stuff
Yeah,
in, or ASL? And
Yeah, we do. There's sign language. We have people that speak, I think it's Russian, any other languages y'all can think of? Yeah, I think we had one that spoke Vietnamese, but
Chief, what's your second language?
the Bible.
Good. Hey, Sheriff.
That's his first.
With recent legislation, yes, sir. With recent legislation going through your budget is not something that really shows out to be fruitful because it's something that you have full authority of. We just look at the top dollar and then ensure that our relationship is going to stay strong and that you're going to continue to do the things that you've told the citizenry and us that you're going to do. And you have been. And so thank you for that. I don't have further questions on it. Commissioner Ponder?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. And along with the chairman saying, Sheriff, you don't have to be this transparent, but I know your character and I appreciate your transparency because, when that law passed, I think, I talked about it may be the way in 6 other counties, but in Okaloosa County, we've got a sheriff that's willing to be transparent. And I appreciate that. I just want to drill down on one thing and thank you again for your leadership, for our county. Safety is critically important. People look and there's obviously some transitioning folks and whatever the case may be, but on the top line, they see obviously the deputies on the street, which is most we always do. But this thing that when you're starting to peel the layers back about sex exploitation, children's crimes and things of that nature, you're drilling it down to a level that is vitally and critically important for maintaining strength in the community where criminals are going to look for the cracks in the foundation. And when you're going into the foundation and reestablishing what we stand for in our county, that we're not going to tolerate you messing with our kids, we're not going to tolerate some of these things where I'm not saying there other counties do it, but you're putting emphasis on it to strengthen the foundation of our DNA and culture here. So I'm very proud of what you're doing to diversify not only the department, but also reach down into foundational elements that our kids need to grow up and know they have a leader and a sheriff over them that's not going to tolerate you messing with our kids. And so I appreciate that and I appreciate your transparency and your leadership. So well done.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson?
Thank you. Sheriff, of course, appreciated the opportunity to meet with you in advance. This is my 12th year and final year reviewing a sheriff's budget. There's been a lot of evolution along the way. I think, just one, I think it's been noted up here already. There's been significant statutory change in the oversight function of commissions relative to sheriff's budgets. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I think it is a diminishment of checks and balances within the system, but that was not my decision to make. That was the legislature's decision to make. And so we all live with that. And I do echo Commissioner Ponder's, commentary about your willingness to remain open and subject to public scrutiny, even if those mechanics have shifted. There were a few line items, things that I could ask questions about. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You can take those and move those once the top line number is approved, and that is now fully and completely within your purview under the new statutory change. So I say that, and I think you knew I was going to say that simply because I think it's important for the public to understand that, right? And so maybe I say that to understand how critically important it is to always have someone in the role that you're in that people can have faith in and that do subject themselves to that public scrutiny and maintain that transparency. It's probably more important now than it ever was, and certainly we have that right now with you. So I appreciate that. I would note, there's been a lot of evolution in the way the budget is put together, and I think it's been a good partnership through the years. I think the sheriff's office was subject to intense scrutiny. Certainly when I first took office, coming out of the Charlie Morris scandal and some other things, we were able to get some money put back into that budget through the years. And I think really able to allow the sheriff's office to rebuild and, bulk up in ways that it had not been able to kind of during the economic downturn. And so, I say that really to preface, again, it won't be my decision in years to come, but you're right. There is another downturn coming. We will see revenues get constricted at some point. That's, that is inevitable. And, that will be a partnership, but there are critical things that the administration is responsible for outside of the sheriff's office, and so there will be give and take there. And as there has been giving, I suspect there'll have to be some taking at some point along the way. And so I just say that to always suggest to my fellow commissioners and future commissioners that that there'll have to be kind of shared or mutual budget or belt tightening at some point along the way. We of course need to prioritize public safety, but public safety exists in other ways as well. What Jason's crews do to keep our roads, in a safe operating condition is public safety, and what our folks at the jail do is public safety. And so public safety certainly takes a lot of, a lot of different facets. So all of that to say, I've enjoyed very much working with you. It's been a great partnership between the county and between the sheriff's office. I believe we're in a better place, now than we've been in a very long time. And I think your numbers are, you're keeping them in line this year. So I appreciate the effort. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
All right. Nothing to add. Thank you, Sheriff. It'll be a 10-minute break.
All right.
I cue the music at the wrong time.
No,
I sent you
You're my hero out there. I'm gonna say it now. Oh, yeah, well.
Oh, yeah, I heard.
Well, we got one tonight. Anyone else? Thank you. I had just texted him and you texted him about the same time, but because you said I'm gonna text him, I said, well, I just texted him too. So, but yeah, he did. Yeah.
So
Yeah, he gave me his number, said just call him. So, but man, I'm gonna be out of signs for him I mean, man, Mike Powell started at 6 o'clock yesterday morning, and I'm gonna tell you, I've never felt more guilty than sitting there eating a snapper Florentine at back porch last night, and he's in Destin still putting up signs at 8 o'clock. I'm like, but I mean, dude, I had 20 people walking there. I had 20 people building signs, putting out. I mean, these guys do not have that. There's no way. Well, so there were 66 people that applied. Yeah. They took the top 20 to anything, and they're gonna call the top 4. I can't imagine him not being in that top 4, but we don't know yet.
he made 20 of them.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And as good as he writes, he was impressed because the guy basically said, I'm gonna weed these people out with these questions.
All right, we'll get back started. We'll begin with Public Works.
Well, Zan said she wanted to present, but I told her I insisted, so she's gonna let me do it. I'm gonna get the look again. Jason Autry, Public Works. It's hard for me to believe this is the 10th time I've given this presentation as the director. Super pleased to do it, and hopefully we can get through this relatively quickly. This is a quick overview of Public Works. When I started with the budget 10 years ago, Public Works was at about $40 million. There's a couple of significant changes. Obviously, we're up to about $150 million. I want to point out that surtax is nearly $100 million of that. It's $94 million. So surtax is a huge piece of what we do inside of Public Works. And I'm going to spend some time in this presentation to go over that. These are the different divisions that we have inside there. Public Works has a little bit of every type of fund that there is. We have our gas tax, which is our capital improvement budget, and our CTTF. We have an internal service fund with fleet. Mosquito control is entirely general fund support. There is a small grant that comes from FDAX that we use to buy chemical. Surtax is a very special purpose tax. Stormwater is through the MSTU program. John mentioned earlier that the revenue we get off of that simply pays for the people and our O&M costs inside of there. Any of the projects we do at a capital perspective is done through some other revenue source. And then we actually have an enterprise fund inside of Public Works, which is the solid waste. Our ongoing projects that we have, a couple I want to highlight. The PJ Adams widening, as you all know, and John mentioned it, has a piece of it is opened up. There's one little segment on the very western end, plus then we got to tie into the DOT project that is going on. Southwest Crestview Bypass, Nick and I just set a schedule. We're going to do an update on the video of that next week. We have crossed the railroad track with the bridge and the beams, but they haven't poured the deck across it yet, which means the bridge is almost halfway done. It's an amazing sight to be seen. It's the widest bridge, single span, the widest single deck that Anderson Columbia knows that they've built at 95 feet wide, which is pretty impressive. I mentioned that because like the Brooks Bridge is actually two bridges side by side, which is why this single span is a little bit wider. The bridge multi-use path, opened that up yesterday with a groundbreaking ceremony. The contract is actually underway. You can see equipment on that corridor if you go out there. And then the West 98 parallel collector. That's a great example of how we're working with Eglin on coming up with an idea. In fact, I kind of smiled a little bit when I saw that Representative Rudman held a press conference about their notion to do this a little bit to our west, thinking that we had such a good idea. I want to stress to you that our focus is to maintain what we have in play, which is a parallel road from Solar to Green Drive, and then working with water and sewer on the utility side of it. But it is a huge step forward that we think will have tremendous relief for Hurlburt traffic, for Eglin traffic, and then as important, 60% of it, which is residential traffic. And we're looking forward to see that project move forward. We talk about all the projects we do outside of the county with our consultants and our contractors, but I would be remiss if I didn't point out the fabulous work that our in-house staff does. These are all kinds of projects that we work on. For roadway asphalt paving, and this is a combination of what we do as overlay plus what we've done in our stabilization. We've done almost 70 miles of paving the current fiscal year. That means in 9 months, almost 70 miles of paving. That's phenomenal to see that kind of return. I will say that the majority of that has been in our stabilized dirt road approach. The reason we can kind of get in advance there is because the width of it is such that a pass can get us a full mile as opposed to having to do two passes on a larger, more developed roadway. But it's awesome to see that kind of asphalt get put down, see that kind of movement going forward. The Live Oak Church Road, the two pictures you see there, that's where our county crews widened an existing bridge. This is a project that had a really unique blend of a state allocation. I actually got it through DOT, as well as a developer contribution. We're going to widen the roads, widen the roadway at Live Oak Church Road to get down to the intersection. Our crews did the bridge work out there. And then the big pieces at the bottom of it, things that we usually get as nuisance complaints, litter control, storm debris removal. When the tornadoes came through here on May 10, it was not enough to activate our debris contractor, but it was enough that our citizens were complaining about debris that was out there. And we had to go pick that up with our road crews. It took some time. It wasn't the most efficient process that we had, but we got it done. And then the last piece of that, I cannot stress you how important it is and how our guys respect this. We were on call 24/7, 365. Going back to that day on May 10, I was getting text messages at 4 a.m. from my supervisors calling guys and gals in to go to work. John and I met each other out in the end of our driveways at about 6:30 that morning, getting ready to go. They respond because we know our citizens need it and expect it. Really want to focus on the surtax program. I cannot overstate how important this is to what we are doing inside of Public Works. The first piece of this to top left, $94 million in revenue to date from surtax, about $22 million per year is what we're experiencing. I want to go back to when this thing was programmed and planned. We thought $12 million a year for 10 years, $120 million. We are doing almost double that per year at this point. What that means is that we will be done with the surtax program list, the list that was approved by the voters, that was set as part of that referendum. We'll be done with that list probably at the end of year 7. We're in the middle of year 5 right now. So we'll in another year and a half, 2 years, we'll have the list in construction or in action. That's huge. Plus the other things that we've tagged on to it. I want to point out the dirt road stabilization. That alone has been worth its weight in gold from our perspective. We failed at doing 50 and 5 because we're actually going to do about 150 and about 4 is where the math will work out. 150 miles of dirt road is what was out there. We're going to have all stabilized, save for a couple of roads that are going to be improved to paved roadways like Millside Road, High Ridge Road, and then Steel Road. These are other roads that we're actually going to do full improvements, not just stabilization efforts on. But what that's done has improved morale with employees because now when it rains, it's not a dirt road that washes out. We got to go back out and regrade it again. We've cut our grader leases down. I was thinking it was 7. John was right. When he was there, we had 8 graders. We currently have 2 lease graders, and you're going to see in a minute, next fiscal year, that number goes down to 0. We'll have no lease graders, which is a huge move forward for our staff. We also leverage surtax dollars in a way that I don't know that people appreciate. $94 million in revenue. We've actually allocated about $55 million towards projects, but we have $213 million worth of projects in motion right now, which means $55 million has turned into $210+ million in projects. That's a lot of leverage. We do that with some partnerships. We do that by taking advantage of any opportunity we can have. And I want to invite anybody to go to that webpage on the bottom right of that of this slide. That is our surtax dashboard webpage. You can pop onto that, see real-time data. We've worked very closely with the clerk's office on finding ways to put that information up there. I like it because it's such real time. I don't like it because when I typed this slide, it said $213 million. The next day it was like $214 million. Next day it moves. It's that dynamic. It's day to day. It's updated. It's very useful information. It shows you what projects are being done, what projects are planned to be done, the money that we have spent, where the money comes from, whether it's surtax, some other source, or a grant. It's a fantastic webpage. I encourage you to go there. Other services that we perform, we start up a sign and striping and guardrail crew. Almost 2,400 signs to date have been replaced or installed on our county roadways. You'll notice they're the ones largely that have the Okaloosa County emblem on the top right side. This has been huge for us because it kind of limits the propensity for them to walk away on their own. Inside of fleet, the GPS system has been in place. We do have in this budget the implementation of dash cams on what are medium-sized vehicles and above. The number I think in my head was 115, 114 vehicles is what that will go on to. This will give a forward-facing dash cam for those while they're in operation. Mosquito control is fully staffed. I do want to point out inside of our budget, we have a request to add an additional spray technician. This particular year started a little bit earlier than normal. We had a very interesting weather pattern. We get really heavy rains and it would be hot for 5 or 6 days, which is perfect for mosquito breeding. So we started some early sprays, especially up in the Baker Holt area. That direction was really bad. Yellow River, there were mosquitoes that were trying to lift people away. They were that massive. So we are going to add a spray tech to be a little bit more efficient in that process. We are currently fully staffed in there, but they are running at max capacity. And we have one other position that's in there. And then the other thing is we don't just do construction work. We have a lot of planning effort we put into it. We did a significant push on the Northwest Crestview Bypass ACER. This is where we're trying to look ahead. One of the common comments that I receive is, well, how come you're just now getting around to this? Like the widening of PJ Adams. Recognize that started in 2005, that planning effort. So that's really what we're doing now on that ACER report. And then we've had revisions, really good revisions recently to the MSBU policy and the right-of-way and the right-of-way policies, which are important for us. Public Works has had an interesting pickup the past few years on capital projects. So not only do we do road and bridge and maintenance and their fleet stuff, but we're also in charge with our larger capital efforts. This is an area that I rather enjoy. This facility, the courthouse itself, was one that was a lot of fun to get into the construction side of and developing it and learning how the court system worked was phenomenal. We're really heavy in with the tax collector right now. Ben has the property, or Mr. Anderson has the property up in the Crestview by the community center where we're developing his new facility. That'll also house the property appraiser and have a little growth space in that location. We are getting ready to break ground on the ag extension facility. That groundbreaking is next Wednesday at 7:30, I believe is when we have that. We have plans to do a remodel in the Bracken building once the tax collector takes his services out, once the property appraiser takes his services out. And then the public works facility, we have a really strong, solid concept at this point. We're kind of held till we determine the exact site location, but we've got a really good plan in place where we have on there. The reason I want to point out Public Works, tax collector, and the Bracken building remodeling, and you will see it in other locations, is these are large capital efforts that are going to take substantial funds. We're talking the order of $45–50 million to execute. And we are right at the point, John probably is tired of me saying, John, we got to start worrying about this bond. We got to start looking at this bond because we are at the point where we're going to need to have these construction dollars identified. This is something I think that we'll spend heavy effort in for the next 6 to 9 months as we develop these plans and these projects in the capital side, providing the county with amazing facilities and then taking opportunities such as to revitalize the Bracken building and put board chambers inside the Bracken building. To take, we have discussed that. We've talked about it. There's a plan, there's a concept on that.
Do that when we, excuse me for interrupting, Chairman, may I? Sure. Why would we do that when we have these wonderful board chambers?
It's been a directive we've had from the board to find ways to get out of the courthouse because of security and access issues. And it's an ability to utilize the existing facility that we already own.
Did we vote on that or did we, I mean, did I miss a page, Mr.
Any
Hofstad?
funding plan related to that will have to come back to this board for approval. We were directed to study the concept of potentially, given the relocation of the tax collector and the property appraiser to the new facility on the north end of Crestview that opens up space in the Bracken building. With our acquisition of that entire parcel, the demolition of the old drive-through, and opened up area there for potential expansion of that facility. So that's what the design effort is underway on now, is studying that. But any type of funding that would accommodate expansion of that building will have to come back to this board for approval. So you will have another shot at that down the road.
I mean, we've already got this expensive room that we built here. I don't see why we would need to do that. The Bracken building can be utilized for offices. We've got, as you know, some of our employees, Public Works is one of them, has some of the worst offices. Why not place them in the Bracken building and let them, because we live in, you know, this lovely building down south where it's so well cared for. I feel bad when I visit some of these other offices and see how HR and other places have rundown buildings. Offices.
So that is part of it. And to John's point, that is what we've looked at, is how do we move all these pieces around and how do we make the best of the facilities that we have? We have concepts that have been developed based on past direction we've got. Certainly we are not at the point where if we don't want to change or we want to change, we can do those things. But this is a huge capital effort that we're looking forward to move into, that will update some facilities, make land available at the Public Works yard. It's on 85. It's not the best place for us to move dump trucks and large vehicles in and out onto traffic, and to open it up to where it could be redeveloped to something.
Well, one commissioner, let the record show, one commissioner likes the security of this building, and I wish we had better security down south.
Fair. Again, I mentioned earlier about how we leverage resources. This is just an example of what we use. DOT is our most common source for getting other funds, obviously because we do so much road work. But every project that we work on, we try to find a way that we can rub a couple nickels together and squeeze out at least a quarter. PJ Adams widening, that's been going on for years. When you look back at the studies that were done all the way through to construction, and you had DOT funds that were put in, plus Triumph funds that were put inside of there, you expand that project. The Southwest Crestview bypass was largely due to the Triumph funds that came in there. We had the city of Crestview that participated in that project. The College Boulevard multi-use path, that's a state allocation. Those funds come to us through FDOT, but it was an allocation that we got from legislature. And then DEP, the stormwater improvements that we're working out there at Lloyd Street. It's a state allocation, but we get those to work on Lloyd Street and for Overbrook. We really do all we can to try and leverage the dollar to make it so that it will go farther and do more with us. In the event of surtax, what that allows us to do is take that money, put it back into the surtax program to add on additional projects to the end of that project list. Our major resource request, this is the equipment needs. So our mini excavator, that is for our maintenance crews, our maintenance staff we have out there, bulldozer for site work and for roadway work. Our front end loader is in our supply shop where we store bulk materials for it to be distributed and placed out in the roadway. Dump trucks is a big piece of our program. Our current holdup on paving, believe it or not, is our turnaround time to obtain asphalt. So if we get another truck or two, we can reduce that cycle time and improve our efficiency in paving. Broom roller obviously is for our paving crew. Skid steer and excavator, bush hog, all for maintenance, stormwater type activities. Here I point out again that our lease graders, when I started this, it was at 7. We're down to 2. Those expire in January. We will not renew them. We will have the 2 graders that we own on staff use those for roadway construction and for site work, flat work, which is a reduction of $30,000 per year per grader that we do not have to recur every single year. So we're super excited about seeing that reduction.
Mayor, Mr. Chairman, and I don't think I even have to sell this thing anymore, but I do want to, take a moment to say thanks, Jason, to you and your staff on the excellent implementation on the 50 and 5 program, to my fellow commissioners for continuing to support, pushing additional funding towards that program. You know, to date, it's the only surtax project that actually has a positive return, and that the completed product costs less to maintain than the existing product. And so it's not just those grade releases we're saving, it's also the operators that we're now able to redeploy those positions into other really important things, stormwater projects or whatever the case may be. And so it's one of those where the ROI there is a legitimate and tangible dollar value that's perpetual into the future, because it costs less to maintain a paved road than it does a dirt road, and it's better for the citizens. So
it's better for the environment as well, because if you think about it, every time it rains, we're not chasing sediment down into creeks. We're not having to, chase dirt as much as we used to. It's a huge improvement.
And I'll just, if I can, Mr. Chairman, leave this again. I'm out of here in, I think 3 months and some days, but who's counting? I have heard the sentiment from at least one individual who may or may not be running for office that, basically the North End doesn't want their dirt roads paved. I will just leave my fellow commissioners with the firm conclusion that my understanding from the net representation of the community is that they in fact very much do want their dirt roads paved. In fact, it was the primary topic that folks talked to me about for years and years as a commissioner until we got momentum on that program. And so do not, whatever may come, do not let up the pressure on getting that project completed. It's important despite what some outlier voices may say.
I can't think of an instance where somebody came and said, please take the asphalt up. So we're good there. Moving forward, a couple of things I want to point out. Material and labor costs do remain high. They're stabling out a degree, but they do remain high. Bid quotes and prices, they're starting to level out, but they're remaining higher. And what I'm saying is that they're not returning back to certainly a pre-COVID kind of a cost. What we are seeing, though, is that when we have a bid or a proposal that is out there, we're getting more respondents, which is really good because the competitive nature increases. And, we see some projects that are coming in at or below budget, which was not where we had seen bids in the recent past. Fuel prices have slightly settled. I think we went down about 5 cents per gallon on what we were projecting to see over the next 18 months, which is good. One concern that we have inside of Public Works is how much of our program is dependent upon gas tax. With electric vehicles and fuel efficient vehicles, we're worried about seeing declines in future revenues on gas tax. This is where surtax remains really important for us to keep our capital projects moving forward. And we look forward to seeing that grow. Kelly was up here earlier, and I took tremendous pride in that Public Works was number 3 on our fulfillment, our staff fulfillment. And that is a group that's 175 employees. Generally speaking, I've felt that if we're at 80–85% fulfilled, that Public Works is running at about where we can operate normally, because we are always going to have some form of turnover due to the breadth of positions that we have. But we've been at 91–92% for the better part of 2024, which is remarkable. And our applications, we have an administrative assistant position that's open, and we had 52 applications come in for that. So I think that's a testament of the people that they're working with. of the culture that we've developed inside of Public Works and here in Okaloosa County. And I'm super proud and honored to be a part and represent this group of guys and gals. They're awesome. And that is all I have for Public Works. Be happy to answer any questions should you have it.
The 2 leases, you're going to continue 2 leases?
We will have 2 leases until January. Once
Okay.
they expire, they will be done. The reason that works out is because we'll have paved enough of our roadways where we don't need the leases. We can use the 2 graders we own
Right.
to take care of what is left.
And they're in operational order.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're brand new. We bought them I think we acquired them in like November,
Great.
December.
And what do you think the financial benefit to the county will be to get out of the leases? Just to give an idea of.
$30,000 per grader per year. And that was a recurring cost that we were doing every single year. So $250,000 a year.
Right.
Easily. Plus the reallocation of that labor force to be able to go drive dump trucks, to go do other equipment operations that are critical.
In the past, you've spoken about your CDL type of problems. How is that standing?
CDL program has done well for us. We have, I can't thank Kelly enough for her willingness to answer when I call, because I call often. But we have a program in place now where we will hire employees on, and when we advertise the position as a road maintenance, our entry-level road maintenance position, it does offer CDL training through the county. You can give that training, that person, if they get their CDL, automatically gets a promotion into an equipment operator, or somebody uses CDL equipment, so they get a little bit of bump right out the gate. It has dramatically improved our CDL count on staff. We have a couple employees that just don't have that desire. That's fine. We're okay with that. But if they do, they automatically get the promotion. When I talk with our road staff and they ask for new equipment, the first question I ask is, do we have enough drivers to operate them? And that answer is an emphatic yes at this point. So we're really excited about that. We're not losing them. We are able to retain them. We're able to train them. We're able to keep them in-house, and we're in a very good position with that. We've gotten a good system working with our positions, and then as well our training effort through a school over in Santa Rosa County.
Great. Very early in the year, we approved a surtax project to put in a driving pad.
Yes, it's in
near the,
design and engineering.
When do you think that may be accomplished, and will that help with our own CDL?
It will help with some on the site training and on the job training. It will help with, giving a maneuverability area that we have out there. It will certainly help the sheriff's office with their training efforts. We are in design now. We're doing that all in-house. So we'll do the in-house design with our engineering staff. We just last week agreed on the way forward. We'll wrap the design up. We'll get it permitted. Then we'll move it into construction. Our plan is to do the clearing and site prep in-house, probably contract out the paving, just that way I don't take my paver off the roadway. My guess is within the next 12, 15 months, we should have that done.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Autry. Facilities and Parks Maintenance.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Vice Chair.
Good morning. We push this.
Good morning,
Morning.
Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners, and Lynn and John as well. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come up here and brag on my department a little bit. Tell you a few things about the happenings, what's in the past, what we're presently working on, and what we have for our future plans. And again, this will be facilities and parks. I will start off with the parks accomplishments. Again, I won't hit on everything. I know y'all can read this, so I'll hit on some of the high points. If you have any questions while I'm going, please feel free to stop me. I'll do my best to answer them. We have done quite a few facilities, upgrades and improvements with the beach access ways, Beasley Park, Marler Park. We have done rehab bathrooms, a lot of painting, showers, flooring improvements, etc. Moving on to Garden City, and you can see on the bottom picture on the right on that slide, since my time here, there have been no lights there. We were finally able to get the lights installed on that field that is used as a soccer and a football field. We were also able to, I'll bunch a couple of these together, Baker, Cotton Bridge, and Garden City. All three of those we were able to accomplish new playgrounds with resurfacing and get all of that done and accomplished. There are two parts on this next one is Veterans Park. It's maybe a little confusing because this says accomplishments, recent accomplishments. So it's not confused when I get to the next page. There's something else regarding the boardwalk. So this one at Veterans Park is regarding to if you were parked right in front of Veterans Park, looking at the park, all the way over to your right at the corner of the parking lot there, close to where the go-kart track business is. We have rebuilt that boardwalk there. It was in very dilapidated, bad condition. That part is complete. I'll explain the other part in just a minute as I get to the next page. Meg's Park, we had some damage on the seawall repairs. We just recently completed those. We tried to fortify those a little stronger, to upgrade them a little bit to try to prevent this in the future. And we've also done major flooring upgrades at BAY, Port Dixie, and Garden City. These floors are kind of like what you see in a garage, a residential garage, where they're the thick coating with the flakes in them, something a little more durable and easier for the custodians to keep clean, and a little harder for people that like to vandalize to tear them up. We'll move on to some recent accomplishments. I think I flipped one page too far. Recent accomplishments. Again, we're on parks. I mentioned some of the I'm sorry, let me get, here we go. Key projects underway, parks again. We're nearing the end of design of Port Dixie, or some people also refer to it as the Shalimar Ball Fields. We're adding 2 new ball fields. We also have some issues with a concession stand that's been there for, I would guess, approximately 20 or so years, and it's actually built about 8 inches under grade, so they have continual flooding problems. So we have put together a plan of action on that and should be starting any day now on that. Also coming together, wrapping up the end of Colonel Bud Day Park. That park needs a complete renovation from top to bottom. And we're at the very end of getting approval on the design of how we're going to tackle that and what it will turn out to be. We have done some we're starting exterior upgrades at Barra at the Baker Community Center. Previously, we had remodeled the inside of the facility. Now we're going to tackle the outside, which mostly consists of paint, cosmetic things. And under the pavilion, we've got a couple of restrooms that we are also going to upgrade, mostly cosmetics. Everything's functioning properly. We just want to bring it up to the 2024 look. We've also got, this is what I was talking about earlier with this Veterans Park pedestrian bridge. At Veterans Park, we have poured a new walkway. It would be to the east of where the walkway is, where the statues are. I believe we refer to it as the Rookery. It has previously been a boardwalk since I have arrived, and was pretty dilapidated, pretty bad shape, getting to be where I felt like it was a safety hazard. My team demoed that and we contracted it out, and we just recently completed pouring 1,650 feet of concrete for a new walkway. There's a little caveat to that. We also are doing some wood. As a matter of fact, my crews are starting today. I got with Alex Fogg and the FDEP, and the section of this boardwalk that runs parallel to the beach or the water, you cannot have concrete. So we're going back with wood. So we'll have 1,650 feet of concrete, and then we'll have 475 foot of a wooden walkway that runs parallel to the beach. And again, that project starts today, and I'm anticipating it's going to take, given with the weather, approximately a month or so, give or take, to complete that project. We also will be doing remodels at Seminole Community Center, similar to what we have done and will continue to do at Vera. Got some lighting upgrades at Marler Park on the agenda, and Wilderness Landing, some restroom upgrades and installation of an RV dump station. That will also get us in code compliance for Wilderness Landing.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Going back to Wilderness Landing, Butch, I trust that we are in coordination with TDC on that particular facility. I know we're, potentially looking at now, we can spend some of those dollars as well. And I think there was some discussion about kind of a bigger picture review of what's happening out at Wilderness Landing.
Yeah, right. We're discussing it and still, and I think in the early stages of trying to come up with a master plan, exactly what we're going to do. So this is not a very big project we're doing. It's just kind of a minor project because we do have a dozen or so RV spots out there, and we do not have a dump station. So we had failed a couple of inspections regarding that. So I've met with the inspection people on that. And we've come to a happy medium and agreement. We don't want to get too extensive in what we're going to do because we don't know what the future holds. But at the same time, we need to do something to rectify the situation right now. So we're within the limits of where we need to be.
What's the cost of that interim project?
Somewhere around 20K, give or take. One of the things that's going to be critical, and actually going to speak with Jason Autry about this. He's not aware of it yet. I haven't got with him yet, but one of the big cost is going to be the amount of dirt that we have to have hauled in out there. So it's going to depend on where we get that dirt. Is it something that Jason and his team may have time and resources to help us with, or will we have to contract out? So that's going to be a big factor, one way or the other, of the total cost of that.
Thank you.
The restrooms and the dump station are going to be 20,000?
The restrooms are already there. The restrooms are already complete.
The upgrades of the restrooms and the dump station is going to be.
Oh, yes. Yeah. In that ballpark, again, depending on we don't have final nailed down numbers until we see exactly the amount of dirt we're going to have out there to raise the elevation.
Okay.
To have this dump station.
Is it an additional septic or is it a separate septic?
This is separate from the existing bathrooms out there. This is specifically just for RVs to utilize.
So it'd be a commercial that suits what, 9 units? Is that how that code
Yes,
is?
it's 9, 10 right there, something like that. So we're having it sized, like I said, for that, trying to build it with the thoughts of in the future, depending on what we do, thinking about being able to enlarge that. So we're thinking about that as we're moving forward with the system we're putting in now. So thinking about future modifications as well as we do that design.
Mr. Chairman, may I,
Yes, sir.
this one, I'll be honest, catching me a little bit by surprise. If it's all right, I, kind of take some privilege and dig into this a little bit, seeing as how this is in my district. Ms. Adams and I had just talked last week about getting an opportunity set up to get out there and kind of look at the bigger picture planning. I know Craig's got his light on back there. And so I just want to make sure we don't get kind of cart before the horse. I think to your point, I didn't realize we we're going to be putting in a whole new septic system out there. And if so, maybe we have to, but maybe we don't. Maybe there's another way to kind of crack this nut.
Well, there is I've spoken with the permits, people that have failed us, actually twice out there on the inspection due specifically to no dump station for the RVs. And I kind of have worked a tentative agreement with them. Either A, I will do this project, or B, as long as I can show them some type of plan that we have that we're going to do moving forward. Timeline on that is not as critical. So, yeah, like I said, we'll revisit with
Commissioner, if I may, it failed us for what? For camping or for day use?
for not having the dump station, even though we have the RV spots.
So allowing camping, but not having a dump station?
Yes, sir.
So that portion has failed. So not the park and.
Not the park
could be
itself.
used
No,
for
sir.
day
Just
use, but-
that part
Until
right
that
there,
occurs.
just that slice of the pie, so to speak. So it's not a monumental deal. And like I said, if, I could follow through with this plan, we can also talk to them. And if we have a bigger game plan, once we put a master plan together or whatever, if I show that to them, they seem more than willing to work with us on that. As long as we're going to come up with a solution, they seem more than willing to work with us on it. So I'll revisit that, and talk to some people and meet and kind of get a better idea, maybe what the master plan is going to be. I'll visit with Craig on it
Okay,
and get back on that before we pull the trigger on it.
thank you. Mr. Coffey?
Yes, I was going to offer that on that additional expansion stuff, it will take the renegotiation of the lease with the Division of Forestry, which we need to do. And I think there's been a model essentially laid out by the state itself, Division of Forestry at Hurricane Lake and Carrick Lake, which is going to show how to build a substantial lift station, a septic system to accommodate full-blown camping, which I think has been the goal, is to really expand it. Right now, we're limited to like one guest RV and 4 or 5 primitive sites. And they do require that dump station. That was a gig. And apparently I did research it. It is in state law. For whatever reason, they had a new inspector and he checked with DEP and we checked it with state law, but it's required for any campground whatsoever. It's a DEP rule and it just hasn't been enforced for decades while that, I guess, wilderness landing's been out there. So we've
Yeah, no, appreciate that. If I just want to,
Yeah.
and we can move on. I think, without wading too far into details, there's been some challenges associated with some of the, kind of the loose nature of the fact that we run a little bit of an ad hoc, not super formalized campground out there.
Right.
Has created some problems, or I should say the potential for a problem, and it's something that we need to resolve. And now we're going to have the opportunity to kind of intermixing the opportunities created by tourism development dollars. And so that's my only point. Not that I don't want to get us in compliance with state law, I absolutely
Right.
do, and we need the lift station if we're going to have RV camping out there. But if we're being honest, the facility really isn't set up at this point for RV camping, and so I think we need to kind of step back and look at the big picture.
That's true.
Thanks.
We definitely will. I'll get with Mr. Coffey on that and we'll sit down. We'll do our due diligence on it, come up with a game plan and see if we need to take a left on that instead of a right. I have switched it to the next page, proposed 25 capital improvement projects for parks and boating improvements. This is a lot of numbers here. I'm not going to go and read them all to you. I know you can see them. I'll hit some of the big ones. This is one that's been rolled over. The first one, the Holt, we're building a new community center there. We already have an existing park out there off of Highway 90, and I've been working with the Holt Fire Chief in conjunction. They're also building a new fire station out there, and our community center will be behind the fire station. So we're kind of working together on that to kind of pull all this off at the same time.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
What's the current status coming out of the whole fire department?
The last time I spoke with them, they were $1 million short and they were trying to come up with the money.
When was that?
That was within the last 2 months, give or take.
Okay. So I think, and I'm happy to step in and help with this. You know, they continue to have challenges about finding the funding to close their
Right.
gap. I think we've been rolling this forward since before you were here. And so I'm happy to see it at the top of the list and happy to see that my fellow commissioners haven't swept the money yet. But we may also have the same issue of $350,000 not doing what we need to do if we keep pushing this along and letting prices escalate. I know we went ahead with the leaned in on the park facilities, the small playground facility, but we're also having to operate porta potties out there, if I'm not mistaken,
Right.
which is significantly less than ideal. It makes the community feel something like they're being given kind of short shift, even though that's not the case. We have been trying to wait and allow the fire department to catch up. I think what I would ask is that we look at ways to really get aggressive in seeing if we can split that off, get a significant enough site design where we leave room for the fire department. It was their facility or site originally, but potentially allow us to move forward with some construction so that this project doesn't kind of sit.
No, I agree 100%. And I was going to get to that. I've been doing a little due diligence on that, speaking with the Holt Fire Chief. And looking, have their plans and blueprints now of how it's going to be laid out. I kind of wanted to get that information first, which would allow me to pick the right position for our community center there. So now that I've done that, I have been thinking, like I said, I don't like seeing this roll over. This has been roll over. I've been here almost 4 years and I don't like seeing projects roll over like that. I like to get them completed and behind us. So I was looking at that idea that you had, no longer waiting on them and let them be the holdup. Let's go ahead and do what we need to do. I am speaking also with their architectural engineering firm to try to make sure anything we do doesn't trip them up or get in the way so that we can, kind of coexist, but possibly with us being there first. So we're no longer waiting on them on that project. Moving on down, Patriot Park, the 350K number. I know they're doing some road work over there and some, I guess, underground drainage and things of that nature. So kind of in limbo on that, waiting till they finish that till we can move forward in that direction. Marler Park Playground and Splash Pad at $1,250,000. Working in conjunction with TDD and Sharon Gold on that project. The all-inclusive park, Meg's Park in Niceville, I believe that's Commissioner Ponder's project, your district. Yes, sir. So that 750K has just been allotted for that right now.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, but Jason and Craig, everybody in the same room, can you give me the latest update on that? I know there's some plans we're putting together. I know the city of Niceville, a couple of people there are obviously eager as well as myself, especially since Commissioner Bowles said we're on the short rope kind of getting out. But Can you give me the latest update on that, where we are, what's needed to be done in order to get it to the next phase?
I honestly can't. I'm gonna have to defer to Mr. Coffee on that. Craig can help me on that.
I know you give me a. Okay, so still there. What is your best estimation on when that part will be done to move to the next phase?
So what we plan on doing is creating a master plan that identifies.
Jason, would you come to the microphone?
Sorry, I'm sorry, Chair. I just want to get, just swear by all the people in the same room, same time. Thanks, Jason. I know you gave me an update a few weeks ago. Just going to try to get the latest.
Yeah, this is a little bit different because the plan is we're gonna lay out the pods of what's gonna go onto this parcel. And then there's gonna be different contracts let to construct the different pieces to it. So like the Miracle Ball Fields will be a singular contract. The building, I think the city of Niceville is gonna do the building singularly. So the master plan of this would probably have done in the next 4 to 6 months. If I had to guess, the permitting should be relatively simple, a little bit of stormwater. And then we're going to figure out how do we want to execute the parts inside of it. I would guess that you're looking at about a year's worth of work. I don't know the timelines on how long it takes to construct those ball fields or what kind of delays they have just yet. But it'll be a little different than like a road job where we will have a bid set and we go farm it out to an independent contractor. We'll have probably 4 or 5 contractors out there working.
Okay, I'll give you on that. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you, Mr.
but
Chair.
it is moving forward and the city's super excited.
Yeah, they are.
The city manager reaches out to me, hey, I got to give an update. Where are we? So
Yeah.
they're pushing too.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, sir.
So that's very similar to me and my wife. What Jason just said there, he's kind of driving the ship, spearheading that. So I don't have a lot of information on it. I'm just paying for it. So,
Chairman, if I might.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
is such a worthy project. Whoever ends up in your seat, we do want to see that to completion. It's going to mean a lot to a lot of people that have special needs children. So, but the problem is you're both leaving, but we'll have to make sure, Chairman, that.
All the good things.
Yeah.
there's a couple other numbers in here. And again, I'm not necessarily spearheading these projects. They're not my area of expertise. I will have some involvement. One of them is 60K. It's the Swift Bayou Park Shoreline Stabilization, which is more in Alex Fogg's Roadhouse. So I'll be working with him, but he will be spearheading that as well. And also the one just beneath that for 112K, Paquito Bayou Longwood Park Shoreline Stabilization. Also will be working with Alex on that project. There's not really any other big numbers on here. We've talked about Wilderness Landing Park
Mr.
design, so we have 75K set aside for that.
There's one that I'm seeing that I want to mention to you that's on your list, Shoal River Wayside Park playground and surfacing replacement. I just hope we'll do due diligence in that to be cautious. That's in the footprint of a bridge expansion. If DOT does pick up on expanding 85, we would be working that project just to see it demolished to be the new footprint of a
Gotcha.
wider bridge. So
Okay.
maybe that could roll into the future efforts in Patriot Park.
Gotcha.
And we could have a nicer playground there rather than 2 that are within a half mile of each other.
No, I like it. That makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize that they were considering widening that bridge that much. So
Yes, sir.
that's news to me. So thank
I'm
you.
glad
Good
to see it. I
information.
just didn't know it was on your list.
Yeah, good deal. I'm going to move on from parks to facilities maintenance. Like I said, again, I won't cover everything. You can kind of see, you can read the list, but I'll hit a few of the high points. We recently completed a office entrance remodel with some security improvements for the supervisor of elections in Crestview. The Bracken building, we did replacement windows and tinning, and we did a little bit different. Before, the previous windows were all the same tint. This time, considering the building, where the windows are facing north, south, east, west, etc. We did different. Some of the tint is 5%, some of it's 15%. We kind of tried to do it depending on where the building was facing. And then along with something Jason was speaking about earlier, looking at the potential of making some modifications to that building. We only did 3 sides of the windows. We did not want to spend the money on the side where the parking lot is to put new windows in there, to in the near future have to rip them back out if we decide to do some type of construction on that side of the building. And of course, if we do not do that construction, we will come back and tackle those windows at that time. Recently at EMS station number 7, off of Essex Road in Fort Walton, we've built them a couple of new pole barns, for storage, equipment and security. This next project, I just hate that this is just like a sentence because this could literally be a book. The Okaloosa County Jail, the kitchen renovations, including a new fire suppression system and added security measures. It's real quick to read that, but to have a concept of what that entailed from beginning to end and what type of project that was, it was very extensive. It was a lot of work. We utilized some of my staff and contractors, and I believe the project came out very well. Crestview Welcome Center. Since we've acquired it, we have done some building renovations, new HVAC, parking lot upgrades, landscaping improvements, fire control panel upgrade, and this week we should be having some of that seal coated and the parking lot striped, and we should be nearing the end of most of the major work we'll be doing there. Jumping down to the bottom one, fairground facilities. What we've done since we've acquired that is basically just gone out there and performed our due diligence. No major changes or area or directions we're heading in. What we've been focusing on is trying to get the building to be safe and compliant, code compliant with anything to do with electrical, HVAC, fire safety. And we're nearing the end of that. We've pretty much got it wrapped up where we feel like we need to be at this point, but things are picking up a little bit. So we're moving forward on a few other things out there. But as far as making it safe, the building is now safe.
Yes.
So Butch, tell me, how do you feel? And I was actually going to scan back to try and look at your percentages of unfilled positions, but I mean, how do you feel with your current staffing levels right now?
I feel that to be brutally honest, I think we're pushed to the limit with what we have to do. So sometimes we have to utilize contractors when I would prefer not to, but it is what it is.
Which projects are you choosing to use contractors on?
It depends.
Or let me say that differently. What decision matrix are you using to make the decision when to use a contractor?
It depends on what projects we have in progress and what percentage. Are we 20% into the project? Are we 80% into the project? How extensive is that project? How long before I'll be able to pull some of those crews off to go to another project? So we try to shuffle it around. We try to use the contractors on the ones that are on the more low dollar end, so to speak, or the ones that are much more extensive, that have tools, equipments, and things available to them that we don't have to us, that we would have to rent, things of that nature. So it's never, I can't give you a clear, concise answer. There's not a certain formula we use. I know this isn't a professional term, but this is kind of how we do it, and it's worked well, but we kind of wing it because we have things change in the blink of an eye every day. We have a schedule, we have projects, and all of a sudden something else will come up, something breaks, something tears up, and it's kind of like the domino effect. When that happens, it doesn't just affect one project, it affects every project we have going and where we have our people and resources allotted to.
No, I appreciate that. I think really what's coming to mind for me is some kind of echoes of some past frustrations that I had about how we were ultimately allocating. I had some projects, this predates you, but I had some projects that rolled over in my district for a year or two, and it ended up coming down to not the dollars, where the dollars allocated. It came down to staffing levels and capacity to do it. And what we were doing is we were using your resources on some of our, for example, our beachfront parks, which were covered by tourism development dollars. And it was my opinion that we should have been outsourcing that work where it makes the most sense. And for me, that comes down partially to a determination of the funding source, which is something I noted you did not mention in your winging it approach to making a decision on when and how to allocate resources. And so you crews do excellent work. I can understand why all of our departments want to monopolize your time, but I'm not sure that the Crestview Welcome Center renovations should have trumped, for example, some of the abysmal conditions at the jail that need attention and might be better suited for our in-house crews as opposed to external crews. And so I don't, I'm not pretending to have the answers here or even to have all of the information, just really kind of putting that back out there is, I think, an important decision point that we need to be looking at when we're talking about allocating limited resources. You're not, you don't have the highest vacancy rates, but you also don't have the lowest. I mean, you're at 11% vacancy rate, and resources are, as you just noted, apparently are stretched very thin. And it may be that some departments could take their projects and bid them and have the resources to have those done professionally, externally, without further weighing on your what is in effect, a general fund department at the end of the day with very limited resources and a lot of demand being placed on you. So
We are doing that, and we are rolling more that way because, like I said, the projects are steadily increasing. Our property, our buildings, our portfolio is increasing.
well, I hear you, but I mean, I can look at this year's completed project list, and again, it speaks of a lot of enterprise fund projects as opposed to a lot of non-enterprise fund projects. So just some food for thought.
Yes, sir. I'll certainly keep that in mind.
Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
following up on what Commissioner Boyles was saying, I was just thinking that as well, that you have 7 vacancies or at least 7 possibilities of new positions. But what's happened is the tourist development money has expanded throughout the county, and a lot of these new projects are as a result, and very good projects. But prioritizing and I mean, we've got Commissioner Ponder here with, special needs project in his district, and I've got several in mine. And it seems to me that we really need to be looking, well, it's really not your district, it's Wells's district, sorry. But we really need to look at prioritizing these projects and trying to figure out manpower behind it,
Yes, ma'am.
because you've got more on your plate than I think you've got people to help you with. at
Well,
this
just,
point.
just to make something clear, is that something that Commissioner Boyle said, like, for example, I was talking about the North Welcome Center, and then we have the jail. I prioritize that. In my mind, the jail is of much more importance. So the crews that we had working at the North Welcome Center would not be the same crews that were working at the jail. Just as an
Probably need
example.
both crews working in the jail if we're being real honest about it.
Well, yes and no, it depends. We move them back and forth. A lot of the crews, we have a lot of carpenters at the Welcome Center and a lot of refrigeration and HVAC at the jail. But I'll move on to the key projects underway. Fire control panel replacement at the OCAB building, bringing the jail again. We're working on numerous HVAC systems out there. Fairgrounds, we're looking at fire control panel replacement. South Health Department, we recently had a flood out there. We've had remediated, and I believe we're about 98% complete with the repairs to bring it back in the condition it was in, or maybe a little bit better before the flood. Met with Mr. Coffey yesterday and some other people at the courthouse annex about some security fencing and issues we've got going on down there, which are in the works.
Any questions, commissioners?
I feel for Mr. Hendrick's department right now. I don't know all the solutions, but this is a management issue and it needs to be addressed. It's not you, it's the number of projects, the number of people you have, and trying to meet all these demands. I don't see how it happens from here.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner, all points well taken. And, we certainly, and I'll work with Craig, and there is an opportunity because, to the commissioner's point, so many of these projects are funded from outside sources that are not general fund sources. And those are typically, our enterprise funds that are healthy right now. And if we need to redirect and bring in outside contractors to get these projects going, we need to do it. What I tried to do with this budget was preserve as much of what Nolan needed in the jail, which was a combination of personnel, resources, and projects, because we have to keep that jail together until such time as we have a plan on the relocation or the addition to that jail. So you'll see his budget when he makes his presentation. I think it grew about 17%, and it needed to. For the same reason, we poured additional resources into facility maintenance and parks, both on personnel and projects. But there's a line there. There's a fine line. I can give him personnel, but if I give him additional projects and we're not getting those projects done and we're pushing them forward, am I better served taking those resources and pumping them into personnel or pumping them into contracts? So we're going through that now, and that's part of the process of building this budget. But points well taken, and I will work very closely with Craig and his team on giving you exactly that.
Well, rarely do I sit down and look, I just looked at your plate and I said, oh my gosh, if I was in charge of this, it would be overwhelming from a management point of view, even though the funding's there. So that's, don't walk away here thinking Commissioner Ketchel was upset with me. I'm not. I'm just saying this is more than we can ask one department. And to your point about the jail, absolutely, the resources need to go to the jail. That we have a big problem there. That's a different thing. Parks are luxuries and nice, but
Right.
jails are essential.
Gotcha.
Do we use a construction management software?
Do we use that?
Yeah. Do you
Yes, sir.
utilize a
In some
construction
instances,
management?
yes.
What software do you use?
I know it's some AutoCAD. I'm not exactly sure of the name.
Okay, but not for project management. So AutoCAD would be more
More for design.
design side,
Yeah,
but
right.
as far as managing the projects that you have with kind of a
We kind of
triage
use that with the OMS system
Okay,
and is how we manage those.
so does it go more spreadsheet based? Is it
Right.
kind of, okay. So we don't use a construction management software. That may be something we need to explore. That
We have looked into it. We have looked into some specialized software that kind of more is tailored to facilities, so to speak. That's something we're investigating. We're just in the infancy stages of looking at that.
Mr. Chairman, may I just maybe some final remarks? And Commissioner Ketchel, I think your points are well taken. I will say maybe somewhat divergently, I don't think it's too much for the department to handle from a leadership standpoint. Frankly, we've got some big departments, and departments with lots of projects going on who have lots of employees and lots of responsibilities, and that's why we have the structure we have. So I don't think it's an issue of too much for a department. I think it's to me, it comes down to a resource matching. And I think Mr. Hofstad makes a good point. To the extent we can use enterprise dollars to make what's effectively a non-enterprise department more robust at the end of the day and have a net increase in capabilities, I think that's a good thing. To the extent that those projects become distractions and force other projects to take a back seat, then it's a bad thing. And so it's making sure we're finding that balance. And I'll note, Mr. Stage is in the back of the room, and I'm pretty sure their facilities work is handled. You don't do their facilities work at the airports, do you, Butcher? Am I
No, sir.
mistaken? Okay, so they have, there is a department that has at least built out a model for being able to manage all of that. And let's be honest, they manage some pretty significant facilities, 3 large airport facilities with, if we're talking about overall construction budgets, I think theirs would put most every other departments to would pale in comparison. And so there is a model, and maybe that's something we look at within our tourism development department. Maybe it's not, but I think it's just something we have to continue to be mindful for. I'm not sure that we've exactly got the mix just right yet. So.
Well, we're working on that. And just to be totally frank, I mean, like I said, we make plans, we make arrangements, but in the facilities department, things change on a dime. We can make plans and sometimes they're just futile. We try to plan out several months in advance and that can change it with a phone call. Then that 3-month plan has to be completely revamped and rethought. And at the same time, we're trying to find that line between our personnel and contractors as we're obtaining new properties. I mean, just like here recently, we have a certain amount of properties and philosophy and the way we've been handling things, taking care of them. But then you throw in the fairgrounds and you throw in the North Welcome Center and you throw in the property off Poverty Creek Road. As it keeps growing, we have to kind of adjust.
Which are all tourism development funded
Right.
purchases.
I understand that. Any more questions before I move on to the last page?
No, I want to go ahead and I want to move on to airports. And then we'll come back with questions if we have any.
Okay.
That way we can make the most of the time that we have.
Got you.
And move forward.
Thank you.
Sure.
Chairman, Commissioners, Tracy Stage, your Airports Director, present your airport system proposed budget for fiscal year 2025. It's kind of starting off with this one slide. We've had a number of challenging years, right? So when I was looking at, okay, what's going to be the best photo? This photo was taken right out of the window. And those massive successes have brought significant challenges in the way of capacity and growth needs, specifically at VPS and all three airports in general. But that's where we're at today. Wheels are up, we've punched through the clouds, and we're just going to keep going up from there. So that picture does make a huge statement, and largely due to this board's guidance and leadership, the success has been tremendous. But this budget does reflect the commitment, the continued commitment to safety, security, operational efficiencies, so our strategic growth for all three airports, with definitely a firm grip on customer service and the passenger experience. And if you've traversed through the airport, hopefully you've experienced that personally. So that's been one of our goals for this last couple of years on the experience part. Staff has provided you with a budget exhibit, which more supplements the summary slide further towards the end, and I'll speak a little bit to that later. This next chart here, we're proud to now offer direct service to 42 destinations with multiple carriers competing in the same markets, providing billions in impacts and consumer choices and connectivity here for our local communities. This past year, over the last 13 months or so, we've added 2 brand new carriers to the family, and that's Sun Country and Avilo Air. Sun Country started in April of 23 and Avilo in 24, both very, very successful starts, and we look forward to long futures with both of those as well. Revenue for VPS's projections based on passenger traffic, which we've conservatively estimated at roughly 2.3 million passengers for fiscal year 25. Revenue estimates at Bob Sykes and Destin Executive are both driven by FBO activities and rents and hangar leases and ground leases. You'll see passenger and customer facility charges are restricted revenues earned from the airlines and the rental car agencies. Both of those streams of revenues are held for specific approved construction projects, which we plan to burn into this coming fiscal year. Mainly the expenses mainly attributed to current economic conditions. We're projecting increases across the board for operating in all lines of business, really. One day operating costs are projected to increase roughly $10,000 per day, from roughly $53,000 to $62,000 a day to run your 3 airport systems. Some of those big operating costs, obviously, you just spoke about facility maintenance. We contribute $1.4 million to the cost allocation plan back to the county. Our repair and maintenance budget this year has gone up tremendously on some aging facilities and some contracts, again, that tie back to customer service and the experience with janitorial and our parking vendor. So many thanks to this board for the efforts and specifically HR for developing processes and procedures for retention and staffing efforts. It's provided a much more stable situation and position, specifically with the airports department. Although we're showing down 9 positions, we're actively recruiting for those maintenance technician positions, and that's normally where we'll have our issues with attracting and maintaining, retaining staff, is in the maintenance section. Next slide here for our 24 CIP accomplishments. You'll see in those photos include the replacement of 3 brand new passenger loading bridges that were done on the B-level gates, 1, 2, and 3 for Southwest, Delta, and American and Delta on B3 shared. This year, we're going to do a brand new jet bridge down at A3. So all the bridges on the A-level concourse are all ground level. We'll all have bridges now. So A3 will be coming online this year. And the covered walkways are nearing completion. Totally transformed the entrance to the airport, especially with the secondary curb being the main pickup point for all TNC traffic and taxis and deliveries. Now those individuals that are traversing to the north parking lots are all doing it undercover. So we're happy about that. It's all lit. One of our big issues with tripping hazards on those sidewalks on the main curb from a lot of the root systems that were there prior to the old concourse that actually was there back in the 70s. That's all been torn up, redone, brand new wide sidewalks. So if you're around, please stop by and visit and see it's the main entrance there. At Bob Sykes, we are nearing completion of the rehabilitation of the entire south apron, wrapping up some of the stormwater infield work right now. And then also the region's first electric aircraft charging station has been completed with Beta. And more to follow on Bob Sykes here. On the CIP, a little more into detail, you'll see this is basically a snapshot of our airport layout plan, but it kind of depicts the projects by year, and a number of major projects are wrapping up that facilitate throughput and capacity as mentioned. And as we move forward, we are very closely aligned to our master plan and rehabilitation of aged equipment and maintaining the infrastructure. Top priority projects for 25 are that baggage claim expansion project Mr. Hofstad mentioned, and our full fuel farm improvements. We also plan to cover the ready rental car return lot, utilizing CFCs to fund that. So all your rental cars where you park them and they're taken care of through the facilities and back and put in ready stalls will all be under cover this coming year. Also in 25, early in the 25, I'll be bringing a request to award the low bid we recently received for the construction of a brand new parking lot on the east side. You'll see depicted in the orange, roughly 600 new spaces, a brand new parking lot in that 6-acre parcel on the east side. A little more on the baggage claim expansion project. The third time was the charm. We had hoped to kick this project off in 23 and 24, but it took 3 rounds of bidding this project. We finally got a realistic price and a great contractor. It'll be funded in combination with the FAA entitlements, bill funding, FDOT, PFCs, and CFCs. This much needed project will expand to the east, roughly 18,000 square foot. We're going to add 2 additional carousels, and we're rehabbing the existing 2 carousels. Today, to give you an example, during a peak period, this area would facilitate roughly 2,000 passengers per hour, numerous peak hours of the day. If you can imagine 10 aircraft arriving in 1 hour, which is our allocation. And those aircraft are upwards of a 200-seat aircraft. That's 2,000 folks looking for bags. So it's pretty tight quarters. Again, we did not get a good bid. We only had 1 contractor, same go around for the second time. Third time a charm. We actually went down $5 million in the bid price for a total project cost of $16 million. And I'll be bringing that to you at your next county commission meeting for your consideration. So we're looking forward to that. Again, early this coming fiscal year, we're going to move forward with planned expansion to the fuel farm. You'll see over there on the left, the rendition. We're going to add 120,000 gallons of Jet A storage, which will provide approximately 2 days of operational capacity at peak volume to avoid any delays. Definitely don't want to run out of fuel. There's been times in past where there's no truck drivers, there's no trucks, the terminals are closed down, you name it, it's happening. So if we can gain additional capacity, we have a great chance to do it, especially since the FDOT gave us $1.5 million to go towards the project. On Bob Sykes, you'll see there, again, color coded, nearing completion on that south apron, the entire apron, $5.5 million project, finalizing the infield stormwater improvements now. We're really looking forward to installing the infrastructure along Foyshaw Parkway once we have the parcels identified for future development. So that design work is ongoing now. We're going to update our ALP with the FAA. And also some heavy investments by others into the airport, specifically with Gulf Air construction. I'll show you a picture here at the end of that hangar that is actually ahead of schedule. And I mentioned the Beta installed $800,000 aircraft charging station at Bob Sykes. That's an executive. We're ongoing right now with a stormwater master plan update that we're working through over specifically on the west side in the tenant areas. And then this year, we're going to spend some time in design on taxiway rehabilitations on all the connectors where all the tenant hangars are, and design of the entire south apron to then move into, obviously bid and construction at the next fiscal years. This slide kind of ties back into that budget exhibit I provided you that gives you much more depth and detail on our expenses, revenues, and then also our cash position, which we're all very proud of. Over the last couple of years, 3 rounds of CARES of funding totaling approximately $25 million have been fully expended at the airports through operational expenses and capital projects. We're going to land at the end of fiscal year 25 in September, projected with $26.3 million in AIP entitlement funds, which are generated based off our passenger levels and activities, $5.1 million in grants in hand from the FDOT, $3.7 million in PFCs, and $5.9 million in CFCs. That's after the projected balances and expenditures with the major projects that we're going to utilize. Those funds are done in fiscal year 25. And then last but not least, we're going to hold strong with $26 million in cash on hand, which represents roughly 416 days operating should we have 0 service. So as always, commissioners, I am honored to present to you, and on behalf of my team, which is impeccable. I can't thank you enough for your leadership, your guidance, and your support. Commissioner Boyles, Commissioner Ponder, the years that we have worked together. I can't thank you gentlemen enough. And I hope you're proud of your 3 airport system. We've come a long way, and the sky's the limit, but it's smooth sailing. We've had a lot of challenges, and the team's overcome a lot to harness the success for Okaloosa County. So, Chairman, with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you or any commissioner might have.
Questions, comments?
Just a quick comment.
Mr. Ponder.
Trace, I just want to thank you for your leadership as well. You've had a lot of things come at you, but you kept the main thing. You've stayed on target. You've kept the vision, the mission, the purpose, all ever present before you. The results, if you judge it by its fruit, tremendous fruit that's followed. And I appreciate your strength and your guidance with really the flavors of general aviation versus commercial. And you've continued to just be an amazing leader and knock it out of the park. And I know from just because I got Destin Executive in my footprint, I know Commissioner Mixon's got Crestview, working through the rules and regulations was a lengthy one. But again, in the midst of all that, you're bringing new carriers to VPS, you're growing it, you're redeveloping it. So outstanding, great job.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Tracy, any kind of just at least anecdotally, your passenger numbers, what are you projecting? Are we, obviously the dollars are in really good shape. I suspect that is in part due to those passenger numbers continuing to climb. Obviously the new airport or airlines, there they are. Thank you. Okay.
And Commissioner, I kind of changed up this slide this year.
Yeah.
We used to run it back from calendar year 2016 when Mr. Hofstad hired me into this post. But I've pared it down because we have more than doubled our passengers since 2016, especially on the employment side. But that's what we're looking at conservatively, obviously. There is some potential on the horizon for that number to definitely change, and it's a big goal for the county. But that's the number we're budgeting to as far as the expenses go.
I appreciate that. Looks good. I think that's solid growth, but manageable growth as well. And so you've certainly done really, really good stuff. I think I've kind of decided if you're my 3rd or 4th airports director in my time. I think 3rd, but certainly
It's a charm.
Please. That's right. Yeah, well, you stuck around, whatever that counts for. Done some good stuff. And I've always been kind of hesitant to say too much, bragging on you. Commissioner Ketchel did enough of that for all of us, but I will say I'm pleased to see the condition of the overall department and is doing good things. So thanks.
It's been a pleasure, sir.
Well, Chairman, I'm lucky to have VPS in my footprint, and you make us look good. I just got to tell you, I just literally got this text while you were talking. Flying out this morning from our beautiful airport on Delta to visit family in South Carolina. first trip flying out since COVID, and you and Tracy should be so proud of all the accomplishments that you've made while working with Eglin and their restraints, and I could go on. But I'm just telling you, you are such an amazing manager. We're so blessed to have you. Hope we can always keep you here in Okaloosa County. Thanks for a great presentation, really. You waited all morning. Thank you.
It's a team, and I'd like to thank, the airport CFO, Mrs. Allison, or sitting back there with me, making sure to keep me straight. But, like I said, the team is bar none. I'll put them on against anyone.
Mr. Carter.
Mr. Chaikin, Mr. Chair, I appreciate it. I'm sorry, Trace, one quick question as a follow-up.
Yes,
We
sir.
talked about the rules and regs. We talked about when we approved it, about adding a general aviation manager of some sort.
Yes, sir.
Is that included in your
We're-
staffing for the next year?
Thank you for bringing that up. There's no request for any additional positions. And that's specifically because I'm going to have one senior position retiring here soon. And I would like to work with Mr. Coffey and Mr. Hofstad on a reorganization to make way for that position as promised. And I also, I'm looking forward to including some of the tenants at Destinest executives specifically, and Bob Sykes, and working through that process. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Water and sewer, Mr. Hackett.
Morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. Glad to be here this morning. I've got about 15 slides to show you, and I'm gonna try and be brief. I know it's getting towards lunchtime, so I'll be quick. And what we're doing is breaking this presentation down into the two main areas where we're focusing a lot of work, and that's resiliency and expansion. And then after that, I'll hit a few slides to give some overview related to staffing, some of our challenges, and the finances as well. So you've seen this before, and it's important to bring it up again just to show that resiliency is kind of a puzzle. There's no single solution to it. It's multiple, and it's different from both the collection side and the distribution side. Just to give you a little bit of context there, distribution is in much better shape from a resiliency standpoint than our collection side is. It's simpler too. We've got 20 tanks, which are easy enough to maintain other than repainting. There's no moving parts. We've got 20 wells with 1 to 2 pumps per well. On the collection side, we've got 156 stations, and those may have 2, 3, or 4 pumps. So it's a whole lot more moving parts, and it's just a more difficult side of the system to work with. And so that's where a lot of our resiliency efforts are being focused. I'll also add to that we have more redundancy, more generator capacity if needed be to keep the critical water supply systems online. So we're trying to catch up on the sewer side, and I think we're starting to make some progress. One way to look at this is kind of pre-Hurricane Sally in 2020, and then you would look at 3 steps after, each step being about a 2-year period. So from Hurricane Sally to 2022 is what it took to kind of get plans and budgets in place to start building our resiliency with the collection system. And that's what these numbers show. When we're talking about trying to address issues on the sewer side, knowing where to go and what the problem is of huge importance. You can see before we were averaging about 5 stations per year being converted to modern SCADA, eliminating the old auto dialers and copper lines. Now we're averaging around 20 stations per year. From 24 to 26, we've got 29 anticipated. We think it's going to be a lot more. The goal is that by 2027, we're going to have all stations with modern SCADA, and all stations will have secondary alarm systems. Feel very confident that we'll be able to get the secondary alarm system which is an Omni Beacon product. It's a cellular, simpler alarm, but it lets us know where a problem is. And we're really closing in on that. I could see us maybe having it early 2026. So I think we're moving along well in that. One other thing that we've done that's been an enormous help was CIPP, cured in place pipelining projects. A lot of that was the result of the ARPA funding. I'm happy to say we have spent all $6 million of that and have been able to line about 37 miles. We're trying to look at it. We've got a great contractor and a very good price to do that. And I think if we can average about 4 to 5 miles a year over the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to be in really good shape. It's the price that we're paying compared to relaying the pipe. The liner gives you just about or better structural integrity as the hose pipe. Plus you get so much benefit in terms of infiltration protection. So that's been an exceptional project. Power is the big thing that we have to worry about with either the distribution or the collection side. And so there's been a big push for generators to make sure that we can meet those power needs if we lose power. We've installed a lot and we've ordered a lot. And that's a big deal because it used to be you could get a generator in 2 to 3 months. Now it takes about a year after you've ordered the PO. So as those stations start coming in, as we continue to build that generator security net, I think we're going to see a lot more improvement. We've also added a lot of bypass pumps. That will continue. We're really starting to get in good shape with that and look for a lot of improvements in the next couple of years. I guess if there's one place where we struggled, it's probably been replacement and rehabilitation of lift stations. I think now we're getting to a point to where we've made a hard push in 2024 to get our specs standardized, to really push a big project that's been on the books for a while, which is the replacement of and rehab of the 10 worst stations. Once we go through that project, I think it's going to give us a good model to go by in the future. And we expect to hopefully have our in-house crews set up and in motion to be able to knock a lot of more of those stations out. We've done a lot of pump replacement, not necessarily the station, but the pump replacement. It's one thing if the pump is working, but if it's not producing the capacity it was designed for, because the pump is old or worn out, we're making a lot of those changes. Of course, it's a much more reliable pump once it's new. So all that work that's being done to replace those pumps is really starting to help build more resiliency as well. Moving over to the water side, we did get the Okaloosa Island booster pump station completed. I feel really good about the island as a whole, especially now we have 2 supply side feeds, one on the bridge and one under the sound. The station is online. It's been working very well for the past couple of months. We've also piloted chlorine tablet disinfection, and that seems to be working pretty well. Well rehabilitation. This is the first year that we have proactively rehabbed 3 wells in a fiscal year. The annex well or the OCAB well was recently completed, and we were able to increase the pumping capacity from 300 GPM to 900 GPM. All these rehabs include moving from food grade oil to water lubrication, so that's going to help improve the performance of the wells as well. The next new well online that's already under contract with JP Construction is Seminole, which will be located on the same county property as Seminole Tank. I think that's going to be a really good project for us. We were able to go from concept all the way to contract in less than a year, and hopefully that fast pace will continue on. We're looking at the Shoal River Ranch well, which hopefully will be funded by grant. We'll just have to wait and see, but we feel really good about that. Longwood transmission main, there's a lot of work being done in the development arena by Victory Village, who's intending in that property near the Reef Center to build a new development upwards of 600 units. They're going to need sewer capacity and sewer availability. We're working with them. They'll probably be able to provide a site for that lift station. That lift station could also help with any Eglin EUL projects that are possibly going to come in line, depending upon what development interests they have with that. So that's moving well. Lastly, the Fluorosa tank, probably where we really need to build a redundancy on the distribution side, is in the west. Excuse me. We're working with the Eglin right now for site locations, something that won't impact their operations. And I think we're starting to get a lot closer on that. As far as distribution piping, we have completed the Highway 90 West project. That was about 2 miles worth of new 10-inch main. The project overall went very well. It was done with in-house crews. The next project is going to be the second phase of 5 phases to relay the northwest side of Okaloosa Island. So we hope to start that project somewhere around in September and wrap it up at the end of the year. We've been working with Jason, and they'll be able to pay for us beginning of January. And we're also kind of following suit with Jason on the 98 collector water main project for that. I did want to bring up a couple of regulatory items that were significant for us, but maybe haven't been talked about very much. The lead and copper survey rule is something where we have to survey the entire system to identify any lead services. We're probably halfway or more through that project, and very happy to report that as of yet, we have not identified any lead services. So that's great news. If that continues, it'll make our replacement plan a whole lot easier. PFAS, all of the testing that we've done so far is non-detect or would be well below the new limits that have recently been established. We did opt out for a class action suit so that if something were to arise later on, we would be able to go after those 3Ms and DuPonts if need be. So as far as the regulatory side goes, I feel like we're in really good shape with 2 major issues for this year. Moving into expansion, what has become ever increasingly obvious is how much sewer availability and capacity drives development. Without that sewer capacity, without that sewer availability, developers just simply can't get the lot density they need to generate affordable housing. And so a lot of our expansion work is up in the north area with the new Shoal River Ranch water treatment facility. It was stagnant for a while, but in 2024, we've really made a push and we're able to get the design wrapped up and get it advertised at the end of May. And in about 2 weeks, we should get pricing back on that particular project. I'll be talking about that a little bit later. So just to give you a preview of it. In the main service area where we have the Benny Pritchett plant, our big project there was the solids handling expansion. We should be wrapping up with that, hopefully in August with startup and final completion in November. That's going to be a real benefit to us, particularly with the septic and fog station, the 25 to 50,000 gallons a day that goes through that fog station. represents about 25% of our total BOD load on that 7 to 8 million gallon day plant. So it's good that we have these facilities in place to help process that. One other project in the main service area to consider is the Sunset Lane Lift Station, Force Main. This is what I talked to you about as far as the Victory Village and the Eglin EULs. In the North Okaloosa wastewater planning, we've discussed many times in board meetings, the JD Mitchum absorption beds are moving along well. We're already underway, and it'll be a project that we'll work in and out of through the year. Jericho Road, water and sewer mains, we will be, that will be a sub project really for the Shoal River Ranch waste treatment plant. And Magnolia Blossom is a developer project where that will be fully funded by the developer. We would be doing the in-house labor, but would be fully reimbursed. We're waiting on the developer to acquire those materials, and we will go from there. Like I said before, July 24th, we'll be opening bids. To echo some of what Jason had said earlier, that we are seeing more contractor interest. I was hoping that we would just at least have 2 contractors bid. We actually had 4 show up for the pre-bid meeting, so I was very surprised to see that, but I think it's going to generate some good competition for us, and hopefully we're going to be able to get a good price and move forward. We've got a lot of things to do in between, which with laying water, building the road, and clearing the site. So we'll have a few public meeting requests coming up soon that hopefully we can do some of this self-performed work. DOT, we've had more DOT relocation type projects than we've had in years. The 2 big ones, of course, are the.
Will you go to staffing?
Yes, sir.
That page that you have on staffing, cover that, and then we'll open for questions.
Sure.
Forward.
Sure. Sure. Staffing, we have this because it is a challenge. Not to say that the group of people that we have are the problem. They're wonderful. I've been so impressed with this team that we have. They're willing to work through the night, the elements, anything to get the job done. And so we're running at about 90 to 91%, which is pretty good. We have dealt with a lot of turnover. And we looked at that, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that of the turnover that we've had, only about 26% was related to people leaving for positions at a higher pay. I thought it was going to be a lot higher. So I think to give credit this board, the things that are being done to increase pay, I think is really starting to pay off. We've asked for 5 additional personnel, but
Ma'am, Mr. Chairman, so if only 26% is relative to pay, that seems to be an outlier relative to the overall numbers. I think 40-something%, if I'm remembering offhand, was for either pay or better opportunity elsewhere for overall county numbers. Then where second to that, or what's the primary reason if you're individually surveying those employees?
The biggest factor was actually life changes, different circumstances. Third would have been.
Can you help me? I'm sorry, define that. Are we talking about people who moved out of the area, people that are retiring? What does life circumstances?
Family issues, things of that sort, changes in life. We don't have a whole lot of detail on what drug.
I believe that's a category on its own that you can check.
Noted. All right, what was after that? What else?
Retirement, and then just kind of a general other.
Okay. Did you also poll for dissatisfaction with either work environment and or management or coworkers?
We didn't
That's
actually
part of
put
the-
that
that's
in a
part of the
group.
review process.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I was just, where were you pulling your data from then? It's not
So
from the
there
bid
were
review
also
process?
18% that were dismissed
Okay,
for various reasons.
Okay.
Some of those we were glad they left, some of those we wanted.
noted. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Any questions?
No, sir. You want to hit your budget overview swiftly?
Sure. We're looking at about a 5.2% increase. We've had a revenue sufficiency analysis done by Stantec, our rate contractor. Consultant rather, they showed that the model still works with the budget we've proposed. It's close, but it works. Some of the things that worked in our favor were above normal amount than what we expected in terms of interest earnings on reserves and some under execution of CIP.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? All right, we'll move to transit.
Morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Commissioner Ponder, Tyrone Parker, Okaloosa County Transit EC Rider. I just have a few slides that I want to present this morning. I'm sorry. Just a couple of things, like I said, I just want to mention from the start. Wanted to mention, like I said, regarding our passenger trips. We have this past fiscal year, we have over 105,000 passenger trips on our fixed route and paratransit operation. This is actually up 2% from the previous fiscal year. Also, like I said, I just want to mention our ongoing partnership with our contractor, MV Transportation. They continue to excel in the area of on-time performance for our paratransit operation. They registered at 94% this past fiscal year, and this is on our ADA response or our demand response service. And again, if you think about on-time performance, goes hand in hand, like I said, with customer complaints. Like I said, we actually had a decrease in our customer complaints. And again, I think that's attributed to the actual on-time performance that they're excelling in, as well as the actual customer services being exerted by those employees that are transporting those passengers. All right, next slide. Actually, this recently, like I said, had a designation from the FTA, Federal Transit Administration, under 5307. Before we were considered as a small urbanized transit system. Now, like I said, with the increased area, we've been designated as a large urbanized area, which encompasses the Navarre, Miramar Beach, and Destin urbanized area. And what this entails, like I said, is that, of course, like I said, it gives us additional opportunities for us, federal transit funding, as well as potential service expansion, like I said, to some of our adjacent counties, if that is the direction, like I said, of this board. But that gives us additional opportunities, like I said, being a large urbanized area. Also, like I said, as we ongoing, like I said, it was actually approved last year. We've been working with our transportation consultant, HDR, and we're at the closing stages of that operational analysis. In fact, I will bring that item before the board at the August 20th BCC meeting. And at that time, like I said, we'll go over recommendations that were brought forward from the consultant, which includes service modifications to the city of Destin, city of Fort Walton, proposed transit service to the Destin Fort Walton airport, as well as for the city of Crestview as well. All right, for FY 2025, we have some capital projects that I want to mention, and one is the passenger transit amenity project. What we're looking at here is basically doing an upgrade or replacement of the bus stops that we have in our service area, as well as the passenger shelters, benches, as well as trash receptacles throughout our service area. We're hoping to get to a point, like I said, where the customer can go to a particular bus stop. They can look at a bus stop sign, and the bus stop sign will have a designated bus stop number where they can actually text that particular bus stop that gives them that real-time scheduling and the real-time of that bus's departure and arrival from that stop. But again, this is the project they wanted
take a look at for fiscal year 2025. Also, as part of the EC Rider Capital Improvement Plan, this year, like I said, in fact, last couple of weeks, we've taken on 2 new paratransit vehicles in our operation. And we have right at $1.6 million allocated for vehicle procurement. And that gives us a total of 12 vehicles that we can actually obtain with these $1.6 million. And again, this is money that we receive through the Federal Transit Administration as well as through FDOT, as well as the Florida CTD program as well.
And those are interesting looking vehicles.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you. Next slide is one that addresses our general fund and grant funding. Okaloosa County BCC general fund contribution of financial impact will remain constant at $87,016 for this upcoming budget year. And also, like I said, I just want to mention, like I said, with the general fund amount remaining constant, we do have allocations set aside through FTA, FDOT, as well as the Florida CTD, like I said, totaling $11 million and a little over $11 million, like I said, for the operation to maintain for EC Rider. So, but again, for the general fund will remain constant from our previous budget year. And that concludes my slide, and just I'll be glad to entertain any questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
Sure. Thank you. Any questions? All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir. You get second place, by the way. Court services was fastest, but you got second. Thank you. Public comments. John, we'll look at it and right. Public comments, would the one person from the public like to speak? Okay. All right. Seeing none. Commissioners, do you have anything?
Yeah, I do. We'll still get out of here before 12. Calm down.
No
No,
worries.
I want to say, so yeah, last year doing this, I know we have one more of these to go, but I just want to say to John and staff, this process has evolved a bunch through the years. And I'm really pleased to see where we've gotten to. The budget process was, at one point in time was really, really, really miserable.
I just want to say painful, but I think.
Yeah, painful is a good word. And honestly, at times it felt like the stuff that was being presented was a bunch of just twaddle. Like it was really difficult to work through, and it wasn't organized or cohesive. And we've come to a much better place. So I appreciate the effort that I can tell has gone into that. The overall presentations are more cohesive. The information that we need is there. The stuff that we don't is not. Not that it's perfect, but it's significantly better. And so I feel like the process is in a good place as I'm getting ready to head out of here. So I just want to say thanks to everybody who participated in that.
Sir. All right. If there's nothing else, meeting's adjourned. I know it's a work.